What is up, everybody, and welcome back to the latest edition of After Dark. My name is Aaron Knoll. I'm your host for this evening, and tonight we have a fun, full panel here. We will be discussing episodes 2, 3, and 4 of Loki in spoilers, so if you haven't seen it, go watch them, come back afterwards. Don't get spoiled, because eventually the show does get interesting, and we'll be getting into kind of a little bit what we think may happen in the last two episodes as they start to wrap up the show. We'll also get into some of the latest movie news, including all the films that have gone to shoot, because a number of movies have began filming this week, and some of the latest trailers. I'll go ahead and introduce him since he's quick to talk here. We are joined by Mr. Nicky Sullivan, who's still doing prep in the background. What's up, brother?
Hey guys, yeah, Aaron just said includering, which I thought was pretty cool. I mean, I've never heard that word in my life before, but hey, we're doing new things here, and that's one of them. So I'm excited to be included in tonight's panel, I guess I should say.
Also joining us, Dr. Spaceman Alan Shepard.
Aloha, I'm included as well. I'm glad to be included. I'm trying to frame up here, because it's been a while since I've been here. So let's frame. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, it's hard to frame when you've done it a while. I was just doing the same thing. It's like, oh shit, I look like an idiot.
Someone whose head is perfectly.
Everybody look beautiful.
Someone whose head is perfectly centered right now, Mr. Medivh Raymond. How's it going?
I don't even have to try, guys. I'm just naturally that centered. I'm good. I'm a little high on Pfizer, but other than that, I'm feeling all right.
Mr. Grant Gregory is with us from Down Under.
I'm happy to be included as well. So look forward to this show. It could be funner.
Included. That's included.
Without revealing what happened, I won't make you debate, Grant. And Mr. Sean Hunter is with us as well, rounding out the panel. Technically, matches haven't been announced, so if somebody can pick up what I'm saying, then that's on you. But what's up, brother?
I'm doing all right. I watched my favorite film, West Side Story, earlier today. Interesting bit of trivia. It was nominated for 11 Oscars. It won 10, but lost in the Best Adapted Screenplay category. So I guess it wasn't a good adaptation.
I mean,
someone's gonna come back to this in like 4 months, and they're gonna get the. God, that was a real wink at the camera. All right, guys. So let's not waste any time and go ahead and get right into this. Sorry, Malcolm. We do appreciate you tuning in, though. Yeah, it actually is kind of funny. Malcolm's been on the last couple of weeks, and he gets in a little after we start, and now it works out. But here we are. If somebody ends up having to drop out early, Malcolm, I told you I'll shoot you a link, but we'll play it by ear because we have these great gentlemen here with us. And let's not waste any time before we get into it. I was able to put something together that kind of quickly summarizes the episode. So let's go ahead and get into Loki. The Disney Plus Marvel series Loki has now aired 4 of its 6 episodes, and we are here this week to discuss everything that's followed since its premiere. To summarize the event so far, in episode 2, we see Loki and Mobius working together to try and find the Loki variant that's been messing with the timeline. Together, they discover that going to world-ending events means that you can cause as much chaos as you'd like and not break the sacred timeline, meaning the TVA will never find you. They use this to locate the Loki at a future world-ending event, where it's revealed the Loki is a female named Sylvie. Sylvie leaves and Loki follows, looking like he's going to join her and leaving the impression that he has betrayed Mobius as the episode ends. Episode 3 focuses on Loki and Sylvie after they break into and escape the TVA, finding themselves on Lamentus 1, a world that is set to be destroyed in a matter of hours. The episode is a journey for the two as they get to know more about each other while desperately trying not to die. In episode 4, after falling in love and being rescued from certain death by Mobius, secrets are revealed. Mobius realizes that Hunter C-15 was murdered rather than dying by accident as he had been previously told. He also comes to realize that all of the TVA are actually variants pulled from their previous time lives to serve the Keepers. Following Hunter B-15 learning the same secrets, the two band together to aid the Lokis against the Timekeeper and Renslayer. As if that wasn't enough, we also learned the Timekeepers are fake androids, Renslayer has sinister motives and a past with Sylvie, and we see the deaths of both Mobius and Loki. Or so we think. So I'll go ahead in kind of a circular motion here. I'll go to my left and start with Sean and kind of work our way around. What were your thoughts overall on kind of the last 3 episodes of the show? What stood out to you most? And then we'll kind of throw it to an open discussion once we're done. So go ahead, Sean.
I think I really enjoyed the series so far. It's I know WandaVision was kind of Marvel's like the MCU's first show, but I kind of consider these 3 shows, Falcon and Winter Soldier and Loki, all MCU's first shows. They're learning and growing. I don't expect it to be amazing right off the bat like other shows, but I'm really enjoying Loki in the last 3 episodes. And I think what has stood out to me is that 3rd episode. It's the one that a lot of people did not like. I really enjoyed it. It was just Loki and Sylvie just learning about each other. I thought the special effects were really cool. They were on an alien planet with a moon crashing down on you. Like, I thought it was really cool, and I really enjoyed the episode, and I'm really enjoying the series so far.
I'll go to you, Grant.
Seems like me and Sean are always going to disagree on everything. I find this the worst out of the 3 MCU series. I mean, they're right about one thing. This Loki is a variant because this is a Loki that we've never ever seen before because he doesn't act, behave, or anything like that, like compared to any of the other ones. Episode 2 was it was fine. I don't understand why Loki didn't use any of his magic instead of fighting with a vacuum cleaner, but I guess that's the directive choice they had to make.
Hall's a product.
Episode 3, I felt like there was some sort of twist or something that was supposed to be coming and nothing happened. I went, oh, that's right, Marvel doesn't do anything that clever anymore. I think episode 4, while it was an info dump episode, it was probably the best out of all of them, but that's not saying much. I'm utterly disappointed where 3/4 or 2/3 of the way through the series and essentially nothing's really happened. This is supposed to be Loki, the god of mischief, and there's nothing mischievous about it. The worst thing I can say about it, it's just boring, and that's the worst thing you can be for one of the most charismatic people that you've got in the MCU.
Fair enough. Yeah, that is the interesting thing about the 6 of us. I think it's going to be a little different for everyone. Alan, I'll jump to you. Your mouthing has been very positive, so let's see how you think.
I'm going to say
What
this.
Jay said.
So far of the 3 series, this is my favorite one without a doubt. I will agree, Grant, it is kind of a little boring because when it is boring, it's boring. There's scenes in both 2 and 4 where Mobius is really kind of mopey and and really a lot of exposition that's kind of been thrown around. But episode 3, I think Lamentus 1 is my favorite of all these series. I think it's I loved the camaraderie and the learning about each other between the 2 Lokis, between Sylvie and Loki. And I think Loki was more Loki in that episode because he was scheming with her, trying to get things from her, trying to, find their way onto the train, all these kind of things. I like that because he was more mischievous. I think you're right. I think he isn't as Loki as the movies. But his acting, I really think the subtlety of the acting, I really am getting a lot of great stuff from Tom Hiddleston in these episodes in this series. So I'm super excited to see what happens, especially after that end credit scene, because they finally jumped to the end credit scenes in the 4th episode. And our boy Richard D. Grant, we always wondered what was going down, and he came in with the old school costume, which was beautiful, and I loved that beyond a doubt. That was super cool. So. But I think 4 was a little more boring than I would have wanted it to be because a lot of exposition. But I did like the reveal of the Timekeepers being the androids, that kind of thing. That was fun. And that fight scene was there. I think all the fight scenes with Sylvie and Loki against anybody are great. I love all those fight scenes.
All right, Mehdi, I'll jump to you. Go ahead, brother.
This is the weirdest Wizard of Oz show I've ever seen in my life. I'm kind of in the middle. Like, I don't hate it, but I don't love it either. I disagree with Alan on this front. So I thought episodes 2 and 4 I really enjoyed, whereas Lamentus, a lot of it just felt like way too long for me. Like, it was a whole bunch of nothing that was just kind of exposition of them talking to each other, and then they had that quick reveal of, oh, they're all variants, and then they move on, and I was like, all right, so the whole point of this episode was just to know that they're variants? That's great. Also, I want to point out...
And that he's bisexual.
Oh, yeah, that too. But, I mean...
Which we already knew.
Yeah.
Alan, did you just do
theoretically.
this to the cameras?
I just did this because I'll be honest with you, I don't care.
Aaron, give me the Zemo. Give me the Zemo.
Yeah, like...
I don't care.
Alan has
I really
kids
don't
in
care.
front of Alan has kids behind his computer, so doing this would have been a little too much.
Would have been too much.
Gotta
Would have been too much.
do something different.
Alan, I'm going
I
to
mean,
recommend that you mute me for the next, 2 seconds, because I'm going to make a joke that your kids definitely don't want to hear.
No, go
Oh, they
ahead.
can't hear anybody, so be grateful
Okay,
for that.
good.
They can't hear us, so that's good.
If I knew that disrupting the timeline only took fucking myself, I would have been disrupting the timeline 1,000 times this month alone. All right? Like, there's so much in this that makes no sense to me. And I'm like, why are you not going to explain this? Like, come
That
on.
was beautiful.
Episode 3, I was like, oh, he's going to try and fuck himself. And, like, I watched it with my sister, and my sister was like, I think he is. And I wasn't sure if it was incest or just self-love. Like, I can't tell which one it is at this point. Like, I don't know if they're, a Game of Thrones fan or, like, what's going on anymore.
Yeah, I don't think
Dude.
it's incest
Dude,
because
that
they're
came
the
out
same
during
person.
Pride Month, and love is love. That's all that matters. Love is love.
Love is love, but,
Yeah,
I mean,
true.
And love is love.
It's
But
not
that-
incest.
that-
It
in
would
itself
be-
has a-
where I draw
I
the
mean-
line.
When you say that, you're a whole can of worms.
Incest is
And I
definitely
love my
love is
All right.
love,
So-
sure. But incest is a little bit past the line for me. That's just I don't want to get canceled
Look,
for that.
Midi. Don't think of it as incest. Think of it as like
Twin
two-person
incest.
masturbation, but it's your.
Yes,
It's like it's
exactly.
not
It's a weird
quite
word.
incest.
Yeah.
But
It
are
really
they the
is.
same person? That's the question that I'm asking myself,
Listen,
because
Yes and
he
no.
wasn't the variant. The Avengers were the variant, and they just blame Loki. So in this situation, did Odin just take the wrong kid? Like, is that what happened there?
Who knows? There's so much in this show that I have questions about, but they only have 2 more episodes left to explain them. Like, I'm still curious
Well,
about why they
so-
took, like, the young Sylvie. Because she was, like, what, 7
Yeah.
when they took her? Like, what is she going to
Yeah,
do? Oh,
that was weird.
I played with a doll, and now I fucked up the timeline. Yeah, that's
No,
gonna be the major...
she had Legos. That was the problem. She was supposed to
Oh,
have
right.
things instead of
Yeah, it has
Legos.
Legos.
So
It has to be blocks. It has to be blocks.
Yeah.
It can't be Legos. It has to be. But like,
Great
there's so
point.
much. Yeah, Malcolm, I'm not even going to touch
True.
that. You know what? But
They will.
like, there's like,
Oh,
this is only 6 episodes.
Yeah.
Like, what are they? Like, it's taking way too
No.
long for them to get
So,
anything major.
I'm gonna
And now
get
I'm
to
just like,
this.
all right, come on, let's move on.
I'm gonna get
Yeah.
to this in a second, but since I'm going in order, Nikki, I'd like you to go before me, brother. What did you think of the show so far?
I think all of you are right. Like, I think every single one of like your grievances and like the things that you like, they're all absolutely right. No, he's not really the Loki that we know. I almost think they cheaped out a little bit, giving like the video replay where it's like, oh, I watched myself die, so I experienced death myself. No, that's not how it works. Like that's just not how you can't just watch something happen to yourself and then experience the growth. Now, the thing with Sylvie is that I keep thinking she looks a lot like Madonna in the Die Another Day video, especially when they're like carrying her through the TVA and she's just no, or like Gwen Stefani in that other video. Like there's been a lot of music videos where blondes like fight off prison guards, but yeah, Lamentus 1, that's the episode I think stands out in a lot of ways, just because they did talk a lot in that episode. We did get to see Loki being like drinking and having fun and just like Loki likes to party, guys. Shocker there. And I liked the Lady Sif cameo in this most recent episode. I would have liked to see a little bit more of that. Like, it's like, where have you been for the last like 7 years? And then you just show up for this one scene. And, ironically enough, I'm going back through and watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. because my father's never seen it. Like he stopped watching halfway through the first season. Right after we watched that, we watched the last canonical appearance of Lady Sif in the MCU, whether or not S.H.I.E.L.D. is canon or not. But I just think it's funny that that's the last time she was seen was when Loki was king of Asgard, and like that post-credit scene at the end of Thor: The Dark World, whether or not it was after Guardians, before Guardians, we don't really know. I think it was after Guardians because he didn't seem to have the ether during Guardians. But yeah, I'm middling on the show. I think it's good. It's my least favorite of all of them. I think the Timekeepers thing was the most obvious thing in the world. I think the score on this show is incredible. I unrecognized the person that does the score on this, but I think it's some of the best stuff that they've had in Marvel. And now I wanted to ask about the Richard E. Grant because we don't see his lips move. Is Richard E. Grant also the voice of the crocodile? That's something or an alligator. I'm sorry. That's something that I have.
I don't know which animal it is, but I don't think Richard E. Grant is going to voice the crocodile.
Because I saw that.
It's not a Gila monster. It's a monitor lizard.
Really? Nice. Okay. I'm glad. No, we need to get our lizards right, people. I mean, but I'm one of those people that's always wanted like a pet lizard. Like I knew a guy that had a pet iguana once. I'm like, that's just the badass thing ever. So yeah, I'm looking forward to these last 2 episodes. Again, what everybody said, it's kind of hard to believe that this is like a 6-episode thing. They have 2 episodes to tie up all these things. The fight choreography has been good. My only problem with it is that you're dealing with magical characters and you keep taking their powers away. They're doing the thing that they always do on like a show like The Flash. Like, how do we even the playing field? We need to either take away the Flash's speed or we need to give it to someone who he doesn't want to hurt, because otherwise he's unstoppable. So that's kind of my disappointment with the show. It's not Loki enough. And the end credits, the thing I like about the end credits the best, like
I was going to get to that separate.
Not even the scene, but just every week the clips in it. It reminds me a lot of the Mission Impossible movies. How the opening credits, where like they're showing the credits of the movies, they show scenes from the movie, and it's like these quick shots, but it's mixed in with like these graphics that show in most post-credit or pre-credit scenes, but it takes clips from the actual movie or the show itself. So like the shot of like the records playing, the shot of the monitors, the shot of the statues, those are all in the show itself. And then you see them in the post-credits. And that's just something
I'd rather just get more show than 10 minutes worth of credits.
Well, that's the Disney Plus formula. I mean, you know what you signed up for at this point.
Well, now, yeah.
Yeah,
but like
so
the first couple times, I was like, "Are we just gonna sit through 15 minutes of credits for nothing?" Or
those Mandalorian episodes, like those were brutal because it's like, oh, but you're right. Lamentis really did feel like the longest one, even though, well, like, was it the longest one? I don't think it was.
It was the shortest episode time.
It felt like the longest because it felt like they just did it. And the blue screen on that episode looked terrible. Never shoot blue screen from this angle. Always shoot from this angle so that you're getting more of the ground in the shot instead of more of the bad foreground that you didn't build the second volume that they have now when they shot this. As soon as they saw the dailies for this, they probably were like, yeah, build that second volume right now because this blue screen is bad.
All right. So I'll go ahead and kind of wrap up the go around here. So out of the 3 shows, I would probably say it's my least favorite thus far. That said, it's not like I hate the show. My biggest issue, and we talked about this when we did talk about the first episode, my biggest issue with this show was more that it seemed like it was introducing all these concepts without really explaining anything. And for the next 2 episodes, the show kind of continued to do that. It kept bringing things up without really explaining it to you. And then, as you said, like, I thought episode 4 was the best made episode of them all, but it was an exposition dump. It really was like, okay, now we're going to try and catch up as much as we can. But even then, I think it still introduced more questions than it did actually answer anything. The reason I think that, and to me, it's a flaw in the filmmaking from a conceptual point, and I'm going to pull up a comment because he actually did bring it up earlier in the comments. So it's not rumored, but it is confirmed. This is the only Disney Plus show that is getting a second season as of now. That's not just rumored. That is confirmed. I think they knew that when they produced it and they wrote it with that in mind. But in my opinion, that is terrible writing, because if your concept is these are movies but longer. That's how you're approaching the filmmaking behind it, is these are films but longer. You don't make a film to explain everything in the sequel. That's why Fantastic Beasts turned out the way it did.
That's the pitch versus what it actually is. Like, and I said this with all, like, when we started getting WandaVision, Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I think these Disney Plus shows, like especially this first phase of them, is more going to be more than anything journey back to the status quo. So yeah.
And so, like, I agree with, I forget who said it at this point, but I agree with the point that was made of the first episode kind of did cheat. Like, because my thing, and I've said this on the show before, like, I didn't want this show in the first place.
You hate it first.
I didn't want this show because I felt like, from a storytelling standpoint, Loki had a really well done arc, and my whole thing was to bring him back to a point where he wasn't developed, and then to redo it again in a different way is kind of just wasting our time. Like, it feels like you're doing it just because you like Tom Hiddleston and people like Tom Hiddleston.
Like, he stabbed Phil Coulson like a half hour ago.
Let me finish, Nick. My point being is they haven't even done that, because they did cheat. They showed him the footage of his life and showed him what he would go through, and it kind of changed his whole perspective on things. And it's not quite the Loki we had before, but they've set him to a place now where he's closer to that Loki than he even was to 2012 Loki. And so they haven't even done that properly. And it just makes me wonder, like, if we're not going to get any of this explained properly and you are holding off to the second season, what was the point of this show? And I will go down to it. Malcolm, yes, technically High School Musical was the first Disney Plus series to get a second season, but you get what I mean. And I will say this is the pinnacle of it all. And I've made this joke on the show, but I do mean this legitimately. I'm watching both of these shows. I think this High School Musical show is better than Loki overall. I honestly think it's a more consistent, better show. It is. And it shouldn't be. It has no right to be good. But I think it's a better show because at least it is, on a conceptual level, it is setting up its concepts and executing them, and not just setting up all this shit. Because that's what Loki is. It's setting up a bunch of shit that it's either going to rush to pay off or it's not going to pay it off properly.
But that's my biggest question, is like, just to the, when I'm questioning the production, like WandaVision got 9 episodes because the first 3 episodes were immersing you in this sitcom world, and those episodes are shorter. I'm really curious of why, like was 6 episodes a fixed thing that they all went into going in? Like, you need to make 6 episodes worth, nothing more, nothing less? Because most of this show is talking. And it's not that expensive to shoot Tom Hiddleston and Owen Wilson talking.
So, from what I'm aware of, most of the shows were given up to, because this was the way it was originally described, they were given up to the ability to shoot 6 hours of footage.
Okay.
And then from there, it would be divvied out. With WandaVision, they chose to go with more episodes, but shorter episodes, because with the sitcom episodes, they wanted to run closer to a sitcom time.
We were doing this back when Mando came out, because they had a 10-episode order, but they didn't use them all.
Right. So that's a bit of a different thing. With this, the way that Marvel's kind of handling it is they're doing them all like, you can shoot a max of 6 hours of footage. And then obviously when we edit it out, it's not going to even out to exactly 6 hours that we see. But I think they're kind of filling in that standpoint of like, okay, so it's a 6-hour film. Each episode is roughly an hour. And then when we pare it down, get deleted scenes out of there, yada, 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 it comes to however long it is.
Yeah.
COVID affected it too.
I got to jump so we can get Malcolm in here. Because I really wanted to do the Loki thing, and the kids are going crazy, and we got it.
So, Alan, I'll go ahead. I was going to, while I take care of that behind the scenes, I was going to move on because I had a little intro video to intro the post-credit scene and kind of talk about where it might be going. So, do you want to talk about that quickly and then give final thoughts?
I'll talk about that quickly. I'm not really sure where it's going. I was really interested, me and my son, at the post-credit scene with the 3, what I'm assuming are other Lokis, other variants of Loki.
Yes,
it's a city. Yeah, and it's a city, and we're trying to figure out where it is. If it's London, if it's what city is it? Is it on Earth? Whatever it is, we were trying to figure that out by the clues.
Yeah. There's Dark Tower in New York. There's Dark Tower in the background.
Okay, because I thought there was a couple things.
Some sort of gravity weapon went off.
I wasn't
the
sure.
Nuke had gone off in Avengers instead of Iron Man.
Well, Nuke would go And the
So-
buildings looked like they were like
Wow.
this,
Yeah.
like they were all sucked in.
Yeah. It was
So
sucked
when
in.
I saw it, that's what I thought it was. But I mean,
Yeah,
Crazy.
it was interesting.
New York.
Where it goes, I don't know, but I am excited. I'm genuinely excited to find out. I like the enough of a tease.
No one knows
to
how
what
far
it's
it goes.
doing. Yeah, so I'm excited to see where it goes, and we'll find out what's up. I'm glad there's only 2 episodes left. Even though I'm enjoying this one more than the other ones, I don't like them long. I don't like the long episodes. I think the first 3 episodes of WandaVision were unnecessary. We needed one to set up that theme of, okay, this is TV show stuff. I was much more invested when it got to real world now time in that show. And Falcon and Winter Soldier, I wanted to like more, but I think the episodes were just a little too long, and I wasn't interested in the storyline of the Antifa terrorist people.
Right.
I was more interested to see, of course, Sam is one of my favorite characters, so I was really happy to see his transition into Captain America, and I'm excited that he's the new Captain America. But I think we should have been more focused on the U.S. agent or John Walker and that battle between those two, rather than these unnecessary villains. And I hated that actor that played Carly. Sorry. And any villain named Carly, I can relate to because my daughter's name. But that's the side of one. But just kidding. All right. But love y'all. Good to see y'all. See y'all later.
So while Alan drops and I figure out stuff behind the scenes, let's go ahead and briefly intro the post-credit scene before we talk about where the show will go. Keeping pace with the previous MCU shows, the last 3 episodes of the show contain a post-credit scene, and Loki is no different. We open on this post-credit scene, which shows that being killed by the TVA's pruning rod doesn't actually kill you, but instead transports you somewhere else. This means that all the characters we've seen die to the rod, including Loki and Mobius, are potentially alive and just lost in time. We're shown Loki being found in a new place by 4 new Loki variants. Classic Loki, portrayed by Richard E. Grant, Kid Loki, portrayed by Jack Veal, Boastful Loki, portrayed by Deobia Operi, and Crocodile Loki, being portrayed by some actually pretty solid-looking CGI. We also see them in a place that looks like a crumbled mass city, maybe a New York or another city similar to that. This is most likely where we'll pick up with the next episode. All right, so just so everyone is aware, the names that I use there in it are actually what they have been officially credited as post-date on the episode themselves, and we'll go ahead and bring Malcolm in as he joins the show. On the show themselves, post the scene, all 3 actors were just given a special guest star credit. They weren't given a character name. Those were released after. So it's Classic Loki, Kid Loki, and the other gentleman is being called Boastful Loki. And yes, so the specific creature may be a different creature, but they did name it Crocodile Loki, is what they've called it.
With the hammer that Boastful Loki's doing, it looked more like the Mjolnir that Thor with the double R held in the comics.
Oh yeah,
it has the high thing, and it has that who is unworthy can hold this one.
Is
so
that
it's totally unworthy? So I'm thinking maybe it's that one.
What's it called? Is it called Axis? Is that what's from the Axis series or something? When I was looking it up, I forgot to make a note of it, but when I was looking it up, they said the hammer he had was directly inspired by something.
Right, Battleworld.
Yeah, it's from Battleworld, I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
No,
I don't remember completely what it said.
Because in the trailer, you see there's this shot that looks a lot like they had edited something out, where it looks like one of those Mortal Kombat frames where you have Loki on one side and then on the other side there's just a fire hydrant. So I'm thinking something is going in front of that fire hydrant that Loki is looking at, because they've already altered shots from the trailer, like the shot on Lamentis with the moon and the asteroids and stuff coming in. That wasn't in there in the trailer. I think in the trailer they just used the CGI they already had for the backdrop of Vormir or something like that. But they have been cutting out the trailer, so I do think that we're going to see some sort of big monster or something here.
So to answer your question, Jesse, that's because our graphic designer and head of the channel, Matt, has a sick obsession with it. There's no other reason than that. He makes the graphics, and that's what happens. Thanks for watching, brother.
No, he's our reality version of Loki.
I like
Yeah,
Bernie.
Socialist
Malcolm,
Bernie Sanders
I'll
is
jump
our
down to
Loki.
I'll jump down to
Okay.
you since you're newest to the panel, man. If you want to go ahead and recap and give your brief thoughts on it, and then you can start off the conversation about what you think may happen based off what we've seen.
Yeah, I mean, like I'm like out of these, I'm probably the ones that enjoying this the most. I really am enjoying the fact it's a slow burn of a series, and it's just one of those ones that I've just loved. Like the Lamentus one was probably the one that I didn't love as much as the others, um, but all in all, I think the whole series is great. And yeah, as for where I think the last two episodes is going to go, it's going to be interesting because from what I've read online this is coming sort of take a lot of sources from the Agents of Asgard comic series because the classic Loki and Kid Loki is showed to Loki at one point. So whether or not it's going to finish off the way that series ended with, I don't know, but I'm really intrigued to find out.
Yeah, so
That was one of the worst comic book runs ever, so I really hope it doesn't go that direction.
I'll open the floor up to any of you guys, whoever wants to jump in next. Where do you think it's going based off of what we've seen?
I don't think it's going anywhere. I think it's a big bait and switch. We've fallen for this every single series. It's going to be one thing. The next episode's probably not even going to have any of the Lokis in it. It'll all be about Sylvie interrogating, and then the last episode it will join halfway through to that. I genuinely think that's what's going to happen. It's probably going to be absolutely nothing. Maybe the whole point of it is they go somewhere and they find President Loki because that's the only real Loki that we haven't seen yet. And that'll be the big bad,
right.
which will be very, very boring if they did that. Yeah, I don't know who this Loki is. That's my biggest problem because
I completely
I
forgot that was a thing in the trailer.
What?
PowerPoint presentation and now all that development. He's less. Here's the thing: the Loki that was killed by Thanos was a badass. He went through everything. He felt it. He genuinely felt. This guy watched the PowerPoint presentation, and 45 minutes after killing someone, he's like, "Oh, I don't like hurting people." Oh no, it was just a mind stone that was tricking me.
And they didn't even say that. If they had said that would have at least given like an excuse for the drastic change in behavior because the Mind Stone was affecting him. They get into the TVA and this grip on him is gone. If they had mentioned that, then there's at least some justification on why Loki's this lovesick puppy now. But I agree with you. I don't think this is going anywhere. I think it's going to be slightly more fun to watch than you do. But as far as like where is this going, it's journey back to the status quo. I think who's on top of this, who's running the TVA, like who's behind the timekeepers, it's Loki. The name of the show is Loki. It's Loki. It's just going to be Loki.
And the version that we've got is a low-key version of that.
Yeah, and that's why the timekeepers are so like the quote unquote timekeepers. They wanted the timeline to go a certain way because it needs to have the variant Loki that's there so that it can become the Loki that ends up being the king of the timekeepers. It's a bootstrap paradox. He's putting things in motion to get him to the point that he's at now, just so that it's a self-fulfilling loop.
I mean, and also with the whole timeline, it was never explained. You had all these bombs dropped to different things. The timeline went crazy in the next episode. It automatically fixed.
So they
didn't even mention it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're panicking and that's just done. Like Renslayer picked up, but nothing.
The only thing I can think of with that is more it's because all the characters we're focusing on are the people that are directly related to Loki's story. It's not like even the only hunter it's like you can presume that there are like time hunters that are taking care of that stuff, but the only hunter we have character is the one that's been serving as bodyguard or capturer of Loki the entire time.
Yeah.
So it's a case. I think it's a case of it's not the focus of the show.
Yeah.
No, I hear what you're saying.
Get their seconds. They get there after the thing has been changed, and when the thing has been changed, it blows up. They just go there and just drop another bomb. They didn't even show that once.
For the Lokis could be 5 years for the TVA because there's time outside of time. That's the thing about having a time machine. A time machine and not aging you could have somebody go off for 30 years, come back to the exact point that they left and not even notice.
Well, I mean,
Yeah,
if
it'll
they
be-
know where Sylvie's going to be, if they've been chasing all that time, why don't they just wait in one of her future spots? I mean,
Yeah.
she's a child when she leaves, and let's just assume she is Asgardian, and she grows up in the same stuff. She would be hundreds of years old, so she's been on the run for hundreds of years, creating all these different things, and they've not been able to get close to her.
And if
Doesn't make
she's
any
doing
sense.
that, like if
It
she's
seems
jumping
pretty
around the
useless.
timeline, hiding in apocalypses, and there is one, that's why it's all bullshit. Like there is no sacred timeline because it's just not physically possible. Because if there was one sacred timeline and she's jumping to all these places on the sacred timeline, you'd be able to find her anywhere.
I think
She's everywhere at
Yeah,
once. If you're
Well, they
outside,
do-
you're
disagree with
looking
you
at
on
through
that
the
one.
TVA's perspective.
That's one of the few things they do explain. I think their explanation of that is sound. Sure, the reason they catch
She took the bombs.
I agree with you about like the whole the sacred timeline's not real. I do agree there's more to that, but like the idea of okay, if we're playing on the rules of the sacred timeline, they do explain how they wouldn't catch her if she's figured out that by going to apocalypses, anything I do won't cause a blip because at the end of the day, I cannot change.
That's
the
not
Yes,
what
but they've been
master.
chasing her
I'm saying.
until
It
then.
took her time to learn that. So since
Right.
it took her
Yeah,
time
she
to
wouldn't have
learn
just
that,
automatically
the little
just gone
girl
straight
Loki's
off the
back
bat
there.
there.
Yeah.
Right, that just I
There's so much in this show,
And that's not just a problem with time travel logic than a problem with this show. Because if there is, there's two concepts of thought. There's self-fulfilling prophecy, and then there's multiple timelines. They can't coexist.
and this is why I hate the multiverse. Sean,
This
you,
is-
Sean
but-
and
but-
Dee, you guys have been quieter. I'll go to you guys. Whoever wants to go.
We could spend the rest of time talking
This
about
is quantum
time.
physics.
Oh God,
so
no,
let's
please
not
don't.
give it
No,
the
no, no,
time.
no, no. We're gonna wrap up very soon. All right, Medee and Sean, I'll let you guys go next since you've been the quieter of the group. Whoever wants to go between the two of you.
I think, like Malcolm, I'm really enjoying the show. I've enjoyed all of the Marvel shows. I'll never watch them again after I watch the finale, but I'm still enjoying the process. I don't want to theorize so much about what's going to happen at the end because I kind of did that for WandaVision and got my hopes up, so I'm never doing that again. I do think after watching the 3 Marvel series that the MCU TV side definitely has a villain problem. Like all 3 of these series, the villains have been weak or like non-existent till the end. I've been really let down with that. They figured that out with the movies. They need to figure out the villains for the TV side. I do think a lot of fans think Kang the Conqueror is going to show up at the end of this show. I don't think that's going to happen. Why would they put him in a TV show when he's going to premiere in the next Ant-Man film? So I think those fans
No,
are going
he's,
to get their
he's
hanging
hanging out with Mephisto.
It's hanging with
Yeah.
Mephisto
And
Glass.
again, it should be said, Marvel has already come out and said, I said this on the first episode as well, Marvel has already come out and said Kang the Conqueror is not involved in this show. In fact, Jonathan Majors was cast after they filmed it.
They learned the wrong lesson there. The lesson there to be learned from WandaVision wasn't shut things down before people get their hopes up too much. The lesson to be learned there is to say, watch the show. You'll get there. If
No,
you don't,
because
really have to, but that's a pussy thing to do. Like it's
They
just
didn't like all those
Oh,
negative
Nikki,
reviews for the
Nikki.
Disney Plus app, you know?
who
after
cares?
WandaVision.
They already paid for it.
Nikki,
This show-
Nikki, if you let fans do that for every single show, eventually they're gonna stop watching. You have to. What they learned from WandaVision is that they have an audience that, at its core, like not even all of us, but like the really, really, really comic heavy nerdy audience is so volatile at times that if they become so engrossed in their own prediction and it doesn't come true, it
Just
backfires.
ignore it.
That's
Here's
a bull.
the
That's a
And
bullshit
Nikki, that's
analogy.
why you
man.
don't work at
Absolutely.
studio.
They
On Disney
specifically
Plus.
set up to troll
Yeah.
people, and then when it didn't go ahead, they went, "Oh, you people wrapped up in your own thing." Bettany went out and did interviews about working with someone he hasn't worked with before that's been in other
Okay,
comic book films.
no,
I mean,
but you
they
are-
deliberately go out of their way to
completely
troll
different
and then get upset over
There's
it.
5 shows
And then-
that
All right.
And then-
We're
And
done.
then they
We're done.
blame
We're
the
done.
fans
We're done.
for it.
We're done.
only
Moving on.
need
We've
to
had
like
this
one thing
conversation.
on Disney Plus. You only need to like one thing. They just need you to keep their subscription. You don't need to like the show. They don't care.
Yeah, but
That's,
Kevin
I mean,
Feige
it's a good
as
model.
a
That's why
producer cares more than that.
six
Feige's
episode
not the
things
one that
work.
runs Disney Plus.
Yeah, but Feige is the one that's producing the content, Nikki.
Yes.
He is producing this content.
No, you need to listen
Aaron's
to
right. Aaron's right, Nikki.
release
He's the
model.
one that's ultimately in charge of what gets put on Disney
Yes.
Plus from Marvel.
Yes, but
Yeah.
whether or not people like it or not, it doesn't matter. They're still going to be
But it
subscribed
does
to
to
the other things.
Feige.
It does in
It
the
does
long run.
to
If you make
Feige.
enough
Disney.
shit,
I agree, God.
Yeah.
But the Mephisto, I'm talking about the theories, the fan theories about people that are bitching online.
Right.
yeah,
But what
but
I'm
people are
saying is,
stupid.
what I'm
Let them-
saying
Now
is,
they're like trying to apply to the lowest common
Yeah.
Okay, so-
denominator.
They're
it's like-
trying
so it's
to stop talking for 1 second. God, they're shushing people up about Mephisto when it would have been better just to let them theorize.
okay, but the problem is they let people theorize. Then one of their actors made a joke during press. That's the thing everybody missed. He was making a joke. It was never
Yes.
meant to be taken that seriously.
But by
It's
doing
not like
that,
Marvel told him to say it.
you're alienating
Well, I mean-
people who are chill about it.
In all fairness, Aaron, you took it seriously when we did a review of it. When we first heard about it, you took it seriously. I took it seriously.
No, and that's
I don't
totally
Yeah,
fair.
because
But
we
the
thought
difference
we
is
thought
I
it was like a
wasn't-
genuine
harder
thing.
than anybody, and I
But the
didn't care. Who cares?
Yes, but Nikki, you're the minority, and that's where the problem lands. Okay, we're done. We're moving on because we've had this discussion before. We
What?
clearly
No.
disagree.
I just don't get it.
Are you saying
Oh,
it's time?
Yes, but
Yeah,
Nikki,
Aaron.
Shutting down
Shut up,
minorities,
Malcolm,
Aaron.
with
I
your
don't know.
goddamn phones.
all right, we're moving on. We're moving
Is
on.
there
We've had this discussion
about
before. We
the
clearly
theories?
disagree. Okay.
Put down. I don't get that.
Never mind. Okay, so with that said,
That's something
Mindy,
Mephisto
I
would
think
say.
you were the only one who hadn't really spoke. So if you want to go before we wrap up, go ahead.
All right, yeah, I still have to talk. Okay, so I'm gonna try and stick to the main thing of the post-credit scene, which is what we were originally talking about. It just feels like it's too late. You know what I mean? Like there's 2 episodes left, and it kind of reminds me a little bit of like the last season of Game of Thrones, where I think it would have benefited a lot more from a good story that would have spread out for the full 10 episodes that they usually have done. But instead, they're like, oh no, we're just gonna do 6, and then somehow they ended up carrying less because it was 6 episodes and then didn't write a good story. And it feels kind of the same as this. Like they wrote a whole show of, oh, okay, we have Loki and he's going to be a time cop and we're going to mix in Wizard of Oz. And that's as far as their thought process went. Like to me, it feels like, because there isn't anything going on. And this, for me, it's happened to all 3 of these shows, the Marvel one specifically, where they have this whole setup, and it's an intriguing setup, but then they don't have the writing to match up with what the setup is. Falcon and Winter Soldier did it was fine. Like there wasn't anything great about the show other than Isaiah Bradley's storyline, because I thought he was phenomenal. WandaVision, it was more of, all right, you could have condensed this a little bit because the first 2 episodes a lot of people really didn't like as much. And this one, it's like they went and took that too far, where there's like, all right, well, we have this storyline, but we'll put it all into like a smaller package and then we'll see what happens. They could have put this out as a movie and it would have worked much better because it's about the same length, it feels like. And there's so much that like I want to know more about or that I'm intrigued about, like some of Sylvie's backstory, but not explained through an hour of them, 45 minutes of them just talking on a dying planet. Loki's change in powers, because all of a sudden now he has telekinesis and he can reverse time on his own, which he did in Lamentus by like making a building fall back upwards. I don't know. And like there's a lot, like I'm just like questioning what their thought process was in the process of writing this show, because there's so much that I'm just like, all right, well, just get to the good stuff. Like I disagree with you, Nikki, on this point. Like you said, the choreography was really great. I could care less about it. I just feel like it's just been like, it looks more like them just like, all right, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and actually having.
Yeah, it's average TV. Like it's good enough. But my problem is where they're not
good
using.
enough is not what Marvel usually tries to do. Like
Agreed.
if they're going to try and make something, especially with a character as beloved as Loki by almost everybody in the fan base, you're going to have a show that's worth his time, right? So you can't just have like a subpar show that has a lot of setup and then like maybe a 45-minute, all right, here's all the answers to everything that we discussed in the past like 5 episodes. Like it doesn't make sense for me that you would introduce characters like Richard E. Grant and the other 3 Lokis that were in that picture for 2 episodes, and then probably just get rid of them for the next season. Like,
Yeah.
It so much in this show that I'm just
So-
like, why is the pacing like this? And just, change it up. Like, this comes down to the editing. I feel like they could have removed episode 3 and like changed it to like a 15-minute thing, and then just gotten to the stuff that we really wanted to know answers about.
5 minutes,
And so
5 minutes,
I'm gonna go ahead and
5 minutes more footage. It's a simple solution.
Yeah, like,
Over that,
it
that's
could
an
have
extra
been
half an hour
condensed
worth
down.
of stuff.
And I know Alan liked it, and a few other
So-
people might have liked it, but it really just didn't need to be that long.
Well, on the next
And they
episode,
could have used
so-
the
that.
next
so I'm
episode
gonna
they
use
said
that
was only
time for
32 minutes as
Yeah,
well.
and
So
they could have
Really?
definitely used that time for something that we were actually curious about, like what Grant was saying with
Yeah.
what the hell happened with the timeline, because that was like a huge thing, and then all of a sudden nothing happened. Like,
Yeah.
it's just gone. And now I feel like it's just going to be that
So-
same thing again, where the timekeepers are androids, and we're just going to skip over the answer because whatever.
and we've introduced vampires now.
All right, so
Yeah.
I'm gonna
That's cool.
that was just a setup that Blade could exist. Let's be real. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this up.
That's
Or was it
by
a setup
saying-
that Morbius isn't in the timeline? Or Morbius. I'm sorry,
All right,
Mobius.
I'm gonna
Morbius.
wrap this up.
That's what I thought, was that they're dealing with things that weren't supposed to happen. And for me, that I thought that maybe that was a wink towards the camera, being like, hey, that Morbius movie, it might take place in the MCU, but the TVA removed it.
Who cares about that? I don't even
Just
know if
like
that
they
movie's
did on
gonna
the
come
last
out
day.
anymore.
That's another argument. I'm gonna ignore that one. All right, so
An
I'm gonna
argument.
wrap
It's-
this up. I'm gonna try to if I don't get cut off. The crackly audio. All right. So I want to build off, despite the fact that we had our own little mini argument there. I'm gonna actually build off what Nikki and Madi said because I agree with both of them. Nikki, stop. All right.
It's not an argument. You're making an argument. I'm just
Nikki,
saying.
Stop. Let me speak.
Can I just address the most important thing that no one said anything yet?
Oh, fuck.
What happened to Malcolm's beard?
I don't
It
know.
just doesn't look right.
I don't really
TVA
care.
You know
must have
what?
erased it from
I
time.
know the answer to this one. He had a trivia match, so he had to go just to the mustache, and it gave him like all these extra trivia powers. So
Where did Nikki
It
go?
worked.
Did you drop
It
out?
does.
it does. Yeah, that's why I'm shit at trivia, and you guys are fucking.
Get rid of the
killing me.
beard, man. It's like an inverse Samson. You'll be right.
Listen, I don't have a chin underneath here. I don't want to shock the world with that kind of thing.
It's
you know
no
what I mean?
chance.
I haven't had a chin since 2012.
Absolutely. All right.
So,
So
did you kick Nikki or did you just leave?
No, I didn't do anything to Nikki. All right. All right. So to try and wrap this up, Jesus Christ. All right. So what I was trying to say before he cut me off was that I actually do agree with him with a lot of he said, and I agree with Madi. I think my biggest issue with episode 3 and why I think it was the weakest is it was really good character development and character interaction. But I thought we also got that in episode 2 with Mobius and Loki, but we didn't need to we didn't need to stop the episode to do it. In episode 2, we got character development and character interaction and chemistry between Loki and Mobius, but we did it while still advancing what little plot there was in the episode. Whereas episode 3 came to a screeching halt in terms of plot to do character development, and that was my issue with the episode. I think we could have done more with the story while still giving them those character moments. Overall, like I said, I think I agree with Nikki in that if whatever it is that's holding them to the 6 episode count, I don't 100% agree with. And I agree with Madi in terms of like talking about like the writing and the structure of the season. If this is a show where they planned it as like let's say they planned it as 2 seasons and it's a story that's being told over 2 parts, I would have rather one 10 episode show than 2 6 episode shows, because at the end of the day, why set all this up when we're going to have to wait a year plus for the follow-up anyways? I just think it's really poor. Well, I get money, but in terms of storytelling from Marvel, I think it's really poor planning. They have tons of other shows on Disney Plus. If we even want to go blockbuster, let's go with Falcon and Winter Soldier. Let's go with Mandalorian, that have done shows and told complete stories in one and either continued on Disney Plus with a proper continuation of the story versus poorly setting things up just to make us wait for the answer. And that's kind of where my point with that is that I just think it's it's either going to rush job it or it's going to make us wait. And quite honestly, again, as we've said before, I've criticized a lot of what Marvel said recently. I will still watch it because I like most of what they do entertainment wise. I'm not saying the show's not entertaining, so I will give them the benefit of the doubt. But the show is honestly, like, if I didn't love Marvel films the way I do, the show is not good enough to make me want to come back for a second season if I'm having to wait for answers, right? And again, I know I've made this joke plenty of times, but I will continue to say it's a good show. Even High School Musical is doing its storytelling better than Loki, and I don't mean that as a joke. I legitimately think it's got multiple seasons now, and it's handling complete storylines and storytelling better than this show is, and that is fucking sad. Because High School Musical has no right to be good.
If this was one of those shows that they were doing back when they were doing something like The Runaway,
just saw them.
I'll
bring them up. Go ahead and finish, Nick.
Something like The Runaways. If you had never seen a movie with Loki before, if Loki was just a character that was a Marvel character that they said, hey, we're doing a show about this. This is the first time you're seeing him. Would you still be watching the show? Because I wouldn't.
I would have stopped after episode 1.
Yeah.
Again, so like for example, Runaways is something I didn't watch. I may eventually, but it's fine. But I didn't check it out just because it's not something I
need it's connected completely.
Yeah. So like, if Loki wasn't connected to the MCU,
Legion is a better example.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, I don't watch a lot of TV, so that's the hard part. But like, if Loki was disconnected from the MCU, and this is it's a Marvel show that's somewhat related to the MCU, but not really. I would finish the first season because that's my thing. Is if I start something, I will finish it. I probably would not return for a season 2. No.
I hear what you're saying. No, I agree with that completely because I like the show, but I'm only liking it because I like Loki and it's enough in a universe that I care about. Whereas something like Legion,
Tom Hiddleston and Owen Wilson are saving this show.
Yeah, it's not like a show like Legion, which I didn't watch the whole thing. I watched the first 3 episodes. It was advertising as being in the X-Men universe, and it wasn't enough in the X-Men universe for me to care about a brand new character.
What was the other one that did that? Gifted? Is that what it was called on Fox?
Too, Fox is the Gifted. It was towards the end of the Fox era.
They did state that was.
So the next Marvel show, actually,
universe.
Funny enough, the next Marvel show is kind of what Nikki's talking about, which is What If, where it is connected to the MCU, but not completely because it's telling what if stories.
So
that is
that
show.
It's so much better than this.
So what's the next one that's going to be kind of in the same vein, where it's like, all right, a closed circuit story over the course of 6 to 8 episodes or whatever the hell it ended up.
Maybe Ironheart or Miss Marvel.
I have to look up the release order, but what I'll do is
Hawkeye is the next live action one coming out.
Yeah, I think it's Hawkeye.
Hawkeye. Okay, so that one, sure.
But Miss Marvel, we've seen Miss Marvel before in the MCU, and that's kind of more what I'm talking about. So, like, if they have this kind of pacing with Miss Marvel, I won't watch the end of that.
So the last thing I'll say before we move on.
It's going to take them some time, though, to get their TV series to be a little bit better. Like, these are just their first couple. Some of their earlier films were not that good, so I think I just give them some time, and they'll get better at it.
I feel like the whole process of telling a story shouldn't be like. I'm not like writing or doing anything like that in the media universe, but they've had 10 years of making movies where they've kind of learned how they want their movies to work and how they want their storylines to work. So they know what they're doing, but they're just changing the format of how we see it. So, like,
for the first time, they're not restrained by time.
Yeah, they're not restrained by time.
They're just. Yeah,
but they're trying to create a new thing on themselves. But like for some reason, it just doesn't. So I don't understand why they think that if they can make so many, like what has it been, like 25 movies now at this point?
Yeah,
all of them have been at least like 6 out of 10 and higher. Like there haven't been any like straight up shit boxes, but like the shows for me have been kind of on the bottom end of that. They're like WandaVision, I enjoyed. Other than like a couple moments like the Ralph Boner thing and all that stuff, but for the rest of it, like it's just been like, all right, well, it's kind of like a middle ground thing, where we're not really giving as much of a shit. It's like what the idea of telling a story should be the same. It's just different length of how much you can tell. So I don't understand why, like And Sean, I see where you're coming from, but I just don't agree that they're like kind of figuring it out, because it should just be the
You
same.
think they should bother like doing this
No,
on TV?
I think that the idea of having TV shows is a good idea,
Yeah.
because with WandaVision, it was a lot of fun to theorize. Yeah, some
Yeah.
people took it too far, like with how
No,
much of a
That's how I
shit
feel
they were
about
being
that.
at the end.
The Mephisto thing,
But-
I don't care that it wasn't that.
But it was fine. I thought
Yeah.
Falcon and Winter Soldier, it would have been better if they put all of the episodes out in one day. And
Yeah.
I'm kind of feeling the same with this show, because like there's not really enough theorizing going on.
You're exactly right.
But there's
Because
not
the
enough story
Netflix
to it
shows,
either that I want to wait a week between nothing
Yeah.
happening.
because the
Well, this
Netflix
is the
show is
show
more
that they could have done
format
too
the
much
week to week.
theorizing, but
Yeah.
they blew their load with WandaVision and the
Yeah, I
double
mean,
fake out, the
this-
triple fake out.
And yeah,
I
no,
mean, this,
you're
this
right.
should have
This
essentially
show
been
could have
like,
done it.
Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure with Loki sort of thing. That's
Yeah.
what the
Which I would've loved.
trailer advertised it as.
That's why I don't
And the
think they
fact
should
that he was
bother.
DB Cooper, which they had a big 5-minute little presentation about his mysterious past and everything, and it was a 10-second shot, 10-second scene, and that was all
Yeah.
it was.
Seen the
There's
trailer.
just so much that I'm just like, all right, well, it just overall, there's no story. Like,
That's why I don't think they should even bother. Like with these big name characters like Loki, Wanda, Falcon, and that's why I think they're instead of doing a season 2 with Falcon and Winter Soldier, they're just doing a Captain America 4 movie because they deserve better than this. Like if you want to do a TV show, I think Agents of Shield, like say what you will about it, whether it's canon or not, whether Feige holds it like in high esteem or not, that I think did perfect for what this cinematic universe in particularly should do with TV shows. Because if like that's the first question that I ask every time I hear one of these like things pitched. If it's so good, like if it's so important, why aren't they making a movie out of it? Because Captain Marvel, I think Captain Marvel, a lot of people will view as the bottom of like their MCU list. That movie still made $1 billion, and I don't think they're making that profit on Disney Plus because most of the people
It had good placement where it was.
They're already subscribed for Mandalorian.
I think here's the thing. I would much rather have had like the old Netflix Marvel shows like Daredevil, Luke Cage, Jessica Jones,
Street
be
level,
considered more canon, and have that kind of show.
No, just
continuing.
the quality. I don't care if that was street level, if that was blockbuster.
Whether it's canon or not, who cares? But the quality of those shows, other than Iron Fist, was so much better than what we're getting on these Disney Plus shows. And I feel like I don't want to speak for everyone, but I definitely came in like, all right, so Marvel's making another show on a streaming service. Maybe it'll be on that kind of level. And then you watch WandaVision like, all right, it wasn't as good as some of them, but it was better than Iron Fist, so I'll give it that. And Loki just kind of feels like it's almost at the same level of Iron Fist for me, where I'm just like, why do we need this?
It almost doesn't
I
feel
think
like
looking at the Netflix shows and the Marvel shows, the Netflix shows, they had showrunners that worked extensively in the realm of TV.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Kevin Feige, I don't know when the last time is he worked with TV or if he ever has.
Yeah.
But it's
No.
a very big difference doing a TV show, even writing a script for a TV show compared to writing a full feature film, right? And with Kevin Feige being essentially the showrunner for all these Marvel shows, it is a bit of a learning curve. Also, going back to those Netflix shows, a lot of those shows, they had really good first seasons, and after that, it was kind of shit. It was.
Different directors, too. That's an interesting thing to note, is that Feige, with these Disney Plus shows, they shoot these as movies. Whether they're releasing them as or not, they have the same director throughout on all 3 of these shows so far.
So I do want to start to phase it out a little bit, only because we've been going nearly an hour on this, but I do want to jump in there and say I think that is what you guys are saying is the thing around it, right? And I've said it more than once with each of these shows, and it's important to phrase it this way. They treat these as films, but longer. And the reason that's important is because on each show, Feige is obviously the man in charge, but just like how Feige's the man in charge, but on set the director rules all for film, with TV, there's a reason that all of these shows either have one director or, like in Ms. Marvel's case where it had more than one director, they picked Adil and Bilal to be head set the tone directors, and each show has a showrunner and head writer as well. The problem is they're treating these like films, but a lot of the people that they're picking have mostly experience in television. So they're working on television, but they're also kind of working like they're making a film. And it's even like when you see the behind the scenes stuff they did, where like with WandaVision, they had Matt Shackman, who's done extensive work in TV, and he's directed for stuff as small as It's Always Sunny to as big as Game of Thrones. And he's like, yeah, it's so weirdly different than anything I've worked on before, because it's almost like doing a movie, but it's really not a movie. And I think that's the problem, is they've yet to figure out how to translate it in a way that makes sense. It's almost like at times watching if the Snyder Cut had been cut up into the 6 chapters that it had, and they released those week by week, because they could probably have done that if they wanted to. It's that type of weirdness where it's like, this is all one cohesive story, but if you take a movie and chunk it into 20-minute bits and watch it bit by bit, you may not always be as engrossed in the story as you were before. WandaVision was more of a mystery, so I think that's what held it together. At least for me personally, I love the.
But I mean, every episode has a cliffhanger in it. That's the whole point.
Yeah.
Every episode.
But that's what they shut down the Mephisto theory for Loki, was because for WandaVision, that was the best part of that show, was the mystery. Like, mystery and intrigue, that's part of like the week to TV thing. If you don't want people to speculate, release it all in one day.
Well, I mean, they could have done what they did with Falcon and the Winter Soldier and essentially destroyed
and
the character.
Be fair, for all we know,
and did it that way, you know.
For all we know, Feige may want to release it in one day. That's where he loses control, and that's why I think.
Yeah.
But so that's why I think, and that's why that's the discussion we had, right? That's why I understand why Feige himself or the head directors themselves come out and shut down these rumors, because they know that it will destroy people. Like, WandaVision got slaughtered in its finale, and it's not because it had anything to do with the quality of the show. It's because people on the internet were slaughtering it because it didn't meet their views and what they think it should have done.
That's human.
But the problem is, Marvel as a studio knows if they continue to let that happen, it is going to affect the viewership on their properties and how people view their content. And that's why I think
more importantly, get your structure down, get your story. Fans, you're always going to get fans that aren't going to be happy. You're always going to get people who don't even like the property, that just want to bitch about it.
Yeah,
that's always going to happen. They should be worried about making a good story.
All right, so
period. That's what I'm worried about.
Captain Marvel. I'm over $15.
I'm going to take control of the show back. I am the host, after all. We're going to go ahead.
Guys, I'll see you later.
Are you leaving?
Yeah.
Oh,
sure. Oh, is that all you were here for?
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess we're losing 2 of you guys. I do know that after the Vision or the Loki talk, Medee did have to step out. I guess we're losing Nikki as well. Guys, if you want to plug anything before you head out, thank you for being with us.
If there is anything else, I thought that's all we were doing. I didn't know the other stories.
I sent them in the group. You were in the planning group. Even Malcolm wasn't in the planning group.
I don't read things.
Okay, so Medee, do you want to plug anything before you head out? We do have the rest of the show to do.
You know what? I'm good. You guys know where to find me at this point. I'm not good. What am I going to say? I'm on random shows every now and then. After my exams are done, I'll be on more stuff. But for now, just let me rest and study. Fuck.
All right, Medee. Good luck resting, studying, and fucking. With that said, let's go ahead and get into it.
Devin wanted to mention that Ron Perlman was cast as Optimus Primal, but
I don't know what that means.
That's all I get to say tonight.
Okay, if you're heading out too, then see
it was Optimus Primus, which was really weird because that's not actually a character.
I don't know.
It's nice to be included.
Okay, all right. So while they head out, let's go ahead and move on. We're going to go ahead as Hollywood continues to set itself up and kind of relaunch itself, not only through filming projects, but we also had the box office. We'll break that up into 2. Let's first take a look at the box office. Last weekend's box office was a very rough race, though there was ever only going to be one winner. F9, The Fast Saga, released in some markets as Fast and Furious 9, came in first place and broke A Quiet Place Part 2's previous domestic opening record of $57 million, taking in $70 million at the U.S. box office. This haul, when added to its current international gross, means that it has now made over $400 million at the worldwide box office, making it the highest grossing release since the beginning of the pandemic. and beating what was the previous holder in Tenet. Despite the mixed reactions to the film, everyone must see this as a win for the franchise at Universal, who hopes to continue it with 2 more films in the main series and potential spin-offs. Overall, to recap the top 5 this week, number 5 was Cruella, making $3.8 million in its 5th week. Number 4, Peter Rabbit 2, The Runaway, making $4.8 million in its 3rd week. Number 3, The Hitman Wife's Bodyguard, making $4.9 million in its 2nd week. Number 2, A Quiet Place Part 2, making $6.2 million in its 5th week. And number 1, F9 The Fast Saga, making $70 million in its 1st week. On top of this as well, another record was broken as Godzilla vs. Kong, which grossed $240,000 2 weeks ago before exiting theaters for a week and coming back one more time to make an extra $176,000 at the US box office, hit a huge milestone, being the 2nd film since the pandemic began to cross the $100 million mark at its domestic box office. It follows in the footsteps of A Quiet Place Part 2, which hit that total first in its first month after a nearly $60 million opening. This record is just yet another positive step in the right direction for the domestic box office recovery following the COVID-19 pandemic, with Fast and Furious 9 soon to follow in its footsteps. All right, so has anyone here, just out of curiosity, has anyone here had a chance to see one of the dumbest titles in my life, F9 The Fast Saga?
Yeah.
All right, what do you think of it? What do you guys think? I have not seen it yet. I've had almost every aspect spoiled it from me by people who have seen it. So I honestly don't care at this point. But what did you guys think?
I think the physics were the most realistic. No, it's a fast film. It is what it is. It's a silly popcorn flick that's supposed to be fun. I didn't enjoy it as much as I thought I would for something that you just turn your brain off and watch. Bringing back characters that, well, obviously one that had died. But not really, because he was just taking care of a girl who had magic DNA. But like here's the thing: if you want to get smart, start in underground street racing. Start in underground street racing, because every single person within 10 years has an amazing skill. I mean, the guys from Tokyo Drift, they're all rocket scientists now, like legitimate rocket scientists. I mean, there is literally they did prove one thing. They are missing The Rock in it when it comes to the charisma and being able to hold everything together. Dom's fine. The only logical place for him to go next time is for them to still prototype car, and it's going to transport them back to 1976 or something like that. And Dom's going to have to live in the past and mentor his grandfather or something. That's how it's going to go. That's the only logical conclusion. It's a fun. I mean, like Godzilla and Kong, you can just turn your brain off and just enjoy the pretty stuff. There's no real basic story structure or anything. The physics are fun. Let's just say, I mean, it makes Pirates of the Caribbean look like it's freaking realistic. I mean, I'm
just curious,
good, but it's fun.
Because you brought up The Rock. I'm just curious, what did you think of John Cena in the film?
I like John Cena in some of his smaller roles that he's done. This one, I don't know. He felt like a caricature, but then got bored halfway doing something. Like, so I don't see the family resemblance between him and one bit. No. I mean, it's a fast film, so of course at the end of it, they're all drinking Coronas and everyone's happy, and they're all friends. So that's to spoil that bit for you. That always happens. But he's fine. I mean, I can't say it was bad, because I mean, I didn't expect that much to begin with. Mm-hmm. He doesn't have the charisma of say someone like The Rock, and he doesn't have the pulled back restraint of someone like a Batista in some of his roles. But yeah, for I can't remember the film where he was at LA Cop. He barely said anything, so it was good. It was just that he's a physical actor. See, he also does this weird. I'm looking tough now. And he just makes me laugh every time he does it. Looks like a little pug dog.
Did he apologize to China at all during the film at any point?
No, but he did speak Mandarin, so I don't know if that counts. So,
so I just want to address this.
He did apologize.
Listen, I don't know what Cardi B did to you, Chris, but just because she's in it does not mean the movie is going to be bad. I actually
I
don't
mean,
think she's been in any other films.
her being the head of a SWAT unit and not being able to fit in the size vest because they couldn't get one small enough. I mean, it makes sense. They're adding some real world element. I mean, who haven't they had in there? I mean, they had Buddy Iggy Azalea in one, and
No, that was the moment where I went, oh, so they'll bring anybody into these films. Okay, cool. No one's off limits when it comes to the family.
I'm just waiting for them to bring Rebecca Black in.
Oh, and also that's the other thing I forgot to mention. Yeah, everything that's going to happen from now on, is going to be powered by family. So, yeah,
is the rocket powered by family?
The next film is going to be like The Last Action Hero. They're going to be putting him back into different films. The T-Rex is going to be chasing people down Manhattan. He's like, "Don't worry, I've got family," and he's going to save the world.
Okay, all right. So I'm glad to know this movie's as good as I expected.
It is
what it is. You know what I will say? I was disappointed when I read the cast list. Not that he did much in the last one. I'm kind of sad Scott Eastwood didn't come back. I know most people probably don't remember him in the 8th one, but I kind of liked him. I thought he was a different type of addition to those films. I'm sure he's not even mentioned with the consistency of plot with these films, but he was. If you don't remember,
I don't remember the name of his character.
He was the one that was like Kurt Russell's side bitch. He was like his understudy.
Yeah, I don't think he was mentioned. But I mean,
yeah, that lines up.
I actually really liked this one. Like, it's one of those. I've seen everyone saying it's really bad. It's a fun movie. I mean, I don't know what you at this point. I don't know what you expect of Fast and the Furious if you're giving it. If you're saying, "Oh, it's a bad movie," I mean, you go in this for a fun time. I mean, I couldn't see John Cena in this movie at all. Also, all I saw was Jacob Toretto.
But honestly, you know what it sounds like? A lot of what like Grant described his performance as, maybe he's just an actor that doesn't do well in action films. Because I thought he's done really well with the comedies he's been in. But the only other big action movie he's been in, which was Bumblebee, I thought he was the weak part of that film too. Like, for someone who looks as physically intimidating as he is, he doesn't actually play I'm tough and intimidating all that well by the looks of it. Because, like, not Cockers, Blockers was one of his better roles. What's that movie that was good? Thank you, Trainwreck.
Okay, sorry, it's called Cock Blockers out here.
Is it called? Yeah, here it's just called Blockers. Yeah. They probably couldn't say cock.
Okay. Well, I mean, it's one of those. Like, every time I've seen the poster, it's just a picture of a chicken with blockers.
Well, there's a rooster on it. Yeah, there's a rooster.
So I mean, I've always just assumed it was just the movie was just called Blockers, because that's what I've noted as here as well. It's just
listen, I just called it Cockers, so like clearly it doesn't matter.
But I mean, it's one of those ones. Like, it's a fun movie. It's like it's what I expected and more. I mean, they drive a car into space like it's nothing.
Sorry guys, my phone. I'm just getting my overheating warning, so I'm probably going to drop out any second. So
all right, man.
I'll jump back
if you're able to come back, just call the link.
Yep. All right.
Absolutely, brother. Chris, I kind of want you to drop in the comments what the issue is, because what did Kurt Russell do? Is it a plot thing or?
Well, I mean, he's not really in the movie much anyway, so that might be his issue. That there's not enough Kurt Russell.
Not enough Kurt Russell.
Does the Chris, organization that Kurt Russell's character that he like belongs to, is that in the movie at all?
I mean, the organization is kind of there. It's hard to explain a little bit.
The organization's just always been him. Have you noticed there's like nobody else? It's just always him.
I mean, there is nobody else because he's Mr. Nobody.
Nobody, yeah.
Oh, fair enough. Little Nobody. That was what the dude's name was. They kept calling him Little Nobody.
Oh, that's right.
Little Nobody. I know he has a name. They say his real name in the film, and I think it's like Tyrese is like Little Nobody or some shit. Like that's how it happened.
But to go off Chris's comment you just put in there,
She disappeared. Well, that's what the sequels are for, Chris.
Yeah, because from what I've heard is they have said that this for F9 is supposed to be the start of a final trilogy. So we're going to get we're going to get 2 more movies supposedly. But we all know if it makes money, it's probably going to do more. They're going to do more.
So
and I don't know if you've got it in your show notes, but I'll just say it here.
I was going to get to it.
I mean, if you're going to get to it, I'll leave it.
I'll address it now. I'll let you make your point. The whole Cypher spinoff news isn't in it. I'd already come up with a thought for like a discussion topic for another episode of like, because they joked about like, oh, the Dominic Toretto spinoff, or you sent me the article for the musical spinoff, and I was like, so my thought was for like one of the weeks where we're not talking about Loki or another big movie, I thought, oh, a fun discussion topic would be like, what Fast and Furious spinoffs do we actually want to see? And then that story dropped, and I was like, well, I'm just tagging that to that because I don't want to get into this until. So that I'll probably do that one next week just to keep it somewhat relevant with the news, since I don't think we have anything big next week coming out. I should say on air, I haven't actually told any of the people behind the scenes yet, but Matt and I did come to a decision that going forward, probably at least once a month, if there is a film, we'll be talking about a big blockbuster film, starting with most likely Black Widow. But we're going to wait until 1 week later, because the movies come out on Fridays, the show happens on Saturday, so that gives whoever will be on the crew more of a chance to see the film, and it allows us to go into full spoilers. Now, with that said, the 1 week after Black Widow coincides with the last episode of Loki, so we'll figure that out behind the scenes, which one we'll do which week, but either way, a discussion will happen on both, so maybe next week I'll throw that Fast and Furious thing in. But can I just say, that sounds fucking stupid. That spinoff sounds fucking dumb. Like,
I mean, yeah. I mean, it's one of those ones. Like, when I saw it, it's like, interesting.
Why?
I don't. Well, I mean, it's one of those ones because I thought Hobbs and Shaw was a stupid idea. I enjoyed that move.
No, that worked. That worked.
Yeah. So, this could easily be another one like that, in which, like we're saying now, it's a stupid idea. But it could turn out to be something great. But anyway, to sort of cycle this background to the actual topic of the box office, it
made money. Good for it.
But one thing you did say in the video is that it's the biggest earner since the pandemic, since Tenet. It's actually Bad Boys for Life, which was the previous bigger earner from last year worldwide, because that made 426 million. Tenet only did 363.
I was counting since the pandemic began, like since the box office reopened.
Well, I mean, yeah, I get that. Yeah.
Bad Boys for Life made a bulk of its money. I mean, it did get re-released, I believe, in certain markets, but it made a bulk of its money before the pandemic.
Yeah.
But can I just say that's because that movie was way better than it had any right to be. So I'm glad it at least got that marketer of like, because I think the first two are like bad Michael Bay schlock. So you see the third one and you go, they're fucking old. Will Smith hasn't had a good movie.
Are those directors doing Moon Knight?
They are the ones that are in charge of Miss Marvel.
Oh, Miss Marvel. Okay, cool.
Yeah, so that was the instance where, because of another film they're working on, they weren't able to do every episode. So I think they did the first 2 episodes, and they're like the head directors. So they set the creative tone for the show, and all the decisions were run through them, even though, unlike the other shows, they weren't there the whole time.
Cool, interesting.
So it'll be a new dynamic to see if it plays out any differently on screen, like actually having different directors. And then Hawkeye will be a different dynamic as well, because I believe that show had 3 directors who all led creatively and split the work evenly. So again, it's a very interesting dynamic. I like that they're trying new things. The other thing I want to bring up before we move on, because I feel like there'll be more to talk about with the films that are filming, good for Godzilla vs. Kong. Again, I thought that movie was just pure fun. And again, considering most films have struggled really badly financially, I am glad that it was able to Jesus words, it was able to hit that mark that so few films have had. And as I said, with Fast and Furious's big opening, unless it just crashes and burns this weekend, pun intended, I do think it'll hit that $100 million mark domestically. I don't think you could possibly make 70 million and not make 30 million more. That'd be like hitting 299 on Family Feud and whiffing your last two questions. Like, I don't know how, but like you should hit it.
Well, I mean, I don't think Fast and Furious 9 is on a streaming service as a free.
No.
So
If I
Yes,
does
so
Universal is Universal still doing the 17-day thing?
I don't
Okay,
know.
well there
I
we
can't
go.
remember
Listen,
what
I know they had a deal going where the theaters would have it exclusively for 17 days, but I can't remember if they'd stop that or not.
Well, I mean, I don't think they. I don't think
There
they've
wasn't an
said
end
that
date when they announced it, but I don't
Yeah,
know
I
now
know
that things
yeah.
are changing. I have no clue. All right, so let's go ahead and move on then, and we'll get into, now that we've talked about the films that are making money at the box office, what's going to film to try and, make money at the box office. Whatever. With the box office continuing to show signs of improvement, Hollywood is slowly getting itself back into the full swing of things as a number of projects got off the ground this week. First up, Hollywood's own creepy puppet, James Wan, confirmed that Aquaman 2, or as it's now titled, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, began shooting in what looks like an Arctic tundra. The film stars Jason Momoa, Amber Heard, Yahya Abdul-Mateen II, Tamara Morrison, and Patrick Wilson, all set to return in their previous roles, and they're being joined by newcomer Pilu Asbæk in an unknown role. The movie will release on December 16th, 2022. John Wick Chapter 4 also announced that its production had began with a publicity photo released displaying the film's current logo. Alongside it was an announcement that actor stuntman Scott Adkins was in talks to join an already bolstered cast that sees Keanu Reeves, Lawrence Fishburne, Donnie Yen, and Bill Skarsgård lead an impressive ensemble, among many other cast members. We also learned that due to scheduling issues, John Wick Chapter 4 will not be shooting back-to-back with Chapter 5. Though Lionsgate was quick to confirm that Chapter 5 will still happen, it'll just film at a later date. John Wick Chapter 4 will release on May 27th, 2022. Joining the club, Knives Out 2 also began production on schedule. The film took its insane ensemble to the shores of Greece to film the second mystery, starring Daniel Craig's Benoit Blanc. The movie already boasts the aforementioned and spoken on star cast, including Dave Bautista, Kate Hudson, Edward Norton, and Catherine Hahn, but one more cast member was spotted by reporters who had actually yet to be announced, as Ethan Hawke was seen on set, though no pictures were publicly available, and any that did get leaked were taken back. As with everybody else involved, his role is currently unknown, and we do look forward to seeing everyone's part in the film when it drops on Netflix, presumably next year. If you thought I was done, I'm not, because Kevin Feige revealed in a Variety interview that Black Panther: Wakanda Forever is also beginning production this week. Not much is known about how the film will handle the passing of star Chadwick Boseman, but I'm sure all faith in the world has been given to writer-director Ryan Coogler. What we do know is that the film will sport an ensemble cast, with numerous previous supporting members from the first film receiving extended roles, rather than one being chosen to take over the starring role. Returning cast members include Lupita Nyong'o, Denai Guerrera, Martin Freeman, Letitia Wright, Winston Duke, Angela Bassett, and they're joined by newcomer Tina Huerta. The film will release on July 8th, 2022. And finally, Chris Pratt was on Jimmy Kimmel Live when he was asked about when Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 will begin filming, because God knows not enough movies are filming right now. Pratt said that exact dates hadn't been set, but from what he knows, the film will begin shooting in either October or November of this year, 2021, and will film through to April of next year. Pratt confirmed that the film just has to go through its pre-production and previs work, as Gunn had already finished the script prior to beginning his work on The Suicide Squad. The movie doesn't drop till May 4th, 2023, so they'll have plenty of time to get it right like they've done. So I do want to, before we get into it, I do want to bring up whether or not the subject of good is a subjective thing, Chris. I have not seen these films, so I cannot tell you if they are good or bad. But to answer your question, The Forever Purge, The Boss Baby Family Business, and the documentary Summer of Soul have all released to theaters this weekend. I don't see any of them heavily competing with Fast and Furious, especially because Boss Baby was also released to Peacock. So I feel like a majority of families are probably going to stay home, and the Purge needs only to make like 10 million at most to make its whole budget back. So I don't see any of them competing all that much.
Yeah.
With that said, let's go ahead and get into it. Sean, I'll jump to you first. Out of the projects that were all kind of discussed as heading into production this week, which of them interests you the most?
First, I want to say it kind of ties back into the box office and this, that here in Canada, theaters are still closed, and the province I live in, some of our lockdowns are just now getting lifted. So It's awesome the box office is doing well and all these new movies are coming out, but I can't see any of them, which sucks. Looking at what's gone into production this week. Pardon?
My bad. Well, my bad to cut you off, but just for the general audience watching, it should be said that I did denote U.S. box office for this because generally what the denote used is domestic box office. A lot of people may not know this, but domestic box office does also include Canada's box office total. So even with that, there is still a whole other country related to the domestic box office that has been closed off. The question we've never had answered, why does Mexico's not count? But that's another day.
I know, right?
2 of 3 count, but not the other one. So continue, please. Yeah.
I think out of the movies that just went into production that you mentioned, I think John Wick 4. I don't love the John Wick series. I really liked all the movies, but just looking at the cast list for this upcoming it's like the Expendables, but like Expendables on crack. Maybe the Expendables was the Expendables on crack, so maybe this is the Expendables on crack, and just that cast list just looks amazing. I can't wait to see the crazy action stunts and everything they do in it. I really can't wait for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially the other name that stood out to me that I only mentioned the couple there, but the other name that stands out is I believe his name is Hiroyuki Sanada. I don't know I don't have the last name Sanada. I forget his first name. But he's the gentleman that played Scorpion in Mortal Kombat. And again, from a stunt action perspective, that's an awesome pickup. Like that's a great. So Malcolm, I'll go to you. Which of these kind of interests you out of what's gone into production?
So I'm thinking John Wick Chapter 4 is the Expendables. If Expendables was a martial arts franchise, but
if any of them could actually do their action, that's what the Expendables would be.
But I mean, the one that interests me more, just because I didn't realize it at the time, is Wakanda Forever, because it's supposed to come out this time next year. So they've got 1 year to. So I'm surprised they're only just starting going into production now. So that interests me. And I mean, at this point, you think they have to actually confirm Ethan Hawke is in the movie now? Now that he's kind of been sneakily revealed from all these photos that were removed eventually.
Yeah. My guess is, and this is my guess at it, I think the reason he wasn't confirmed, I just want to shout you out there, Grant agrees with you. I think the reason that he wasn't confirmed is because I think he's the person that dies. It's kind of like how with, I don't know if they did it with the original Knives Out, but I know with Murder on the Orient Express, they did everything they could to try and keep Johnny Depp a secret for as long as possible because they didn't want it revealed that a huge star was in the film and died. I think there's a reason with all the cast announcements we've had, he hasn't been announced.
I actually think Johnny Depp was announced for Murder on the Orient Express.
Not initially. I don't believe I'll double check myself. But
I mean, you'd have to go back to when it started. I doubt one started Murder on the Orient Express started filming. But
yeah, go ahead.
But yeah, I mean, it's one of those ones like I just think it was announced that he is in the movie, but I don't think they announced who he was playing. But it's just one of those ones. There's not much that I really can or say about filming because it's good. All these movies are starting filming, but there's not really much to say about them.
Yeah, it's I mean, true. Like, so Aquaman 2, I just hope it's a better movie. Quite honestly, I wasn't a huge fan of the first I don't know what it was. I was very 50-50 on the first Aquaman. To be fair, all the elements that made me 50-50 are back. I don't love Momoa as Aquaman. Aside from her personal life, I don't love Amber Heard either as an actress. I mean, fuck firing her for abuse. I just don't think she's good. I usually like Patrick Wilson, but I wasn't a fan. Like, I just don't know what it was. I didn't love him as Orm. I don't know what it was, but just something about that film. It felt like, to me at least, they were on the cusp of being a good film, but it never quite got there. I thought the best stuff was with Black Manta, and I thought Randall Park was fine in the film. And it's not to say that any of them were bad, but it's like, it felt like at points the movie was trying to be Indiana Jones, but instead of having Indiana Jones being your lead, who is this grounded, as close to realistic lead as you can get, doing these crazy adventures, we had that Brodu surfer dude I met at the Shake Shack down the road. It was just a really weird tone.
I think the tone of the film just didn't fit with Aquaman.
Malcolm is either getting ready to have a shit on camera or he disagrees with me. I don't know which one.
I mean, that's one of those ones. Like I enjoy Aquaman enough. And it's one of those ones. The one that was actually the other one I was going to sort of touch on. I'm still going to stay respectable that Amber Heard isn't in this movie, that she's just trolling everyone by making everyone think she is still in this movie. I mean, until the movie is out or it's kind of confirmed, it's one of those ones like because I know there's a lot of things that people go, oh, she's been seen on set, but if they're only just starting filming now, how can she be seen on set if they haven't been filming all this time? So it's some of that stuff just doesn't sort of line up. So even though they haven't said anything about Amber being in this movie, they haven't said she's not in this movie. So it's easy to stay skeptical about that.
You know, speaking about
going down the
Aquaman,
same route as Mephisto.
You know, speaking of Aquaman and that Black Panther just went in production, do you guys think Namor will show up in that film, or do you just think that's just crazy speculation at this point?
I mean, that's the rumor that the only new cast member they've announced, Tenoch Huerta, who actually is one of the co-leads in the Forever Purge in theaters this weekend, is it's his biggest film to date. Might as well shout it out for him. Yeah, that is the standing rumor. I mean, I could buy it. Like, I think if they're taking the approach of, because I mean, they may name someone as Black Panther, but if they're taking the approach of more, we're focusing on Wakanda as a whole, and this will be more of an ensemble where, you know, instead of having one prominent hero and a bunch of supporting players, we're going to have Martin Freeman's agent and the Dora Milaje in Okoye and Nakia and his sister, and everyone be like a group thing. Then whether Namor's being brought in as an aide to them or as an antagonist to them, I believe, if I'm correct, Namor does have a connection to Black Panther in the comics. They did make a reference to earthquakes under the ocean and Endgame. It is all stuff that could absolutely properly line up. I don't really know. I've still contended that if it were me making this film, and I don't know what Marvel's long-term plan is, and I don't know what you guys think about this, my thought has always been the way they should do it is recast him. But if you're not comfortable recasting him for the second one and you want to give it time, then I would have set this in between the two films, Endgame and Infinity War, because enough of the major players from Black Panther survived. We know Okoye survived. We know Shuri survived. We see M'Baku survive. Enough of the major players survived that you could have held together most of an ensemble and had a reason not to have Black Panther in this film. And then if you come back for a third one or another crossover film that goes to Wakanda, that would be where you could introduce an actor as Black Panther. Now, they haven't said when this film's set, so for all I know, I've just hit the nail on the head. That'd be fucking brilliant if I did. But I don't know what you guys think of that, but I've always thought that'd be a very easy way to get around having to immediately recast. Because I think if they recast now, I mean, because like the truth is Chadwick Boseman hasn't been cast for a year. So if they were recasting and shooting now, I do see how people could say that's in poor taste.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think at some point he should be recast because I feel like the character of T'Challa, especially, and like Sean, you can speak on this as a Black person, as someone who knows a number of Black people who loved Black Panther. And again, it's a situation of you really get to see yourself, and if you are African, maybe bits of your culture through characters when that hasn't really been done before. I do think it'd be a shame if that character just disappears because we no longer have the actor that brought him to life first.
Yeah, I think it sucks because we probably most likely will, except for the What If TV show, we're not going to get T'Challa, the character, back in the MCU again. So that just really sucks because there's so many great T'Challa stories in the comics. Like, I would have loved to have seen T'Challa marry Storm at some point in the future.
True, and they could have done it.
Yeah, they could have done it, but for me, yeah, it just makes sense not to recast him just because Chadwick was that character. And he is the person who so many kids and adults, people of color, looked up to. So just to recast, I think it would just be in poor taste, especially like a year after he passed away.
Absolutely.
Like what I hope they do is either, you know, there's a couple new Black Panthers, and those are like characters we've seen before, and they become Black Panther, or maybe this movie there's no Black Panther, and they're just dealing with the loss of their king or something like that. I think setting it between the two Avengers films, like your idea, I think it would be hard because it's a prequel that would like deal with the loss of T'Challa, but then like he comes back in Endgame, but then I guess the next Black Panther they'd have to deal with the loss of him again, which would be kind of tough. True. For audiences and whatnot.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I'm very interested to see what they do with this film and with
there's no easy way to do it. Like, that's the truth.
Yeah.
Especially because I think in terms of like acting performances, especially I would say in Civil War, I think he gave one of the best performances we have seen in the MCU. I didn't think he was the best performance in Black Panther. I would think that would go to Michael B. Jordan. Yeah. But in Civil War, I thought he was the character that stood out to me. I mean, Spider-Man had the cool flips and shit, but he was the character that stood out where I was like, wow, okay, as somebody who doesn't really know anything about the comics, so I just know, okay, Black Panther's this character. He comes from that fictional country we saw in the other film. That's all I really know about him. I thought he really made an impact, and I really, especially because the movie I'd most recently seen Chadwick Boseman in before that was Gods of Egypt, where he was playing. It's a terrible film. Don't watch it if you haven't seen it, but it's almost worth watching. He was one of the better performances, but he was playing one of the Egyptian gods, but it's almost like they told him to play it as both a smart guy stereotype and a gay guy stereotype mixed together. It's one of the weirdest things I've ever seen. He's still acting circles around Gerard Butler, all things considered, but it's really weird. So I was just like, that guy's our Black Panther. Okay, hope he's good. Because I hadn't seen Get Up yet. I hadn't seen 42. I was just like, that's the guy. Okay, hope it's better written at least. And it was. And he was really great. Yeah, so, and then what was the other film? Oh, Knives Out. No, we talked about that. Did we talk about all of them? Oh, Guardians 3. Yeah, cool. Okay. They got time. I saw a little bit of panic on the internet. People were like, oh my God, they're not shooting it yet. It's 2 years, guys. It's 2 years.
Yeah.
Remember.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like Wakanda Forever, which is coming out this time next year. Like, Guardians has a little bit more leeway. So they can start filming a little bit later. And I think it's entirely possible they could set Wakanda Forever in between Infinity War and Endgame, because I think what they might do is to sort of do it so that from any future Black Panther movie, it doesn't seem so weird to have someone else's Black Panther. I think Wakanda Forever is going to potentially lead up for Shuri to become Black Panther later on, because we might see her become Black Panther in this movie, because like she may go, I was like, well, we're going to need someone to take over, so we'll build up. So that could lead into that. And then from a Black Panther later will be post Endgame, in which she sort of settled into a role as Black Panther, then moving on. Because I think we do have a TV series called Wakanda coming for Disney Plus as well at some stage.
So actually, that it's kind of interesting. That show was announced. It was never given a title, but the rumored title when it was announced was actually Wakanda Forever. So now it's obviously been revealed that that's the subtitle of the film, not the title of the show. But yes, there is a show coming to Disney Plus that is.
Well, I thought
which
the
I
show
think
was.
is
I thought the show was just called Wakanda.
I saw two different titles. They hadn't confirmed a title. I saw two rumored titles. The other one was Wakanda Forever, so it might be just Wakanda. But which again, I should say, I think again, like if we're talking about interest, I actually think that's a great idea for a show. Like taking a place like Wakanda, which is so creatively set up, and exploring it in a way that you could never do in a film, especially if like the rumored idea is true, where it's like I don't know how you describe it. I forget the word, but like every episode is kind of telling its own individual story. There's a word for that, but like every episode is kind of focusing on a different character and telling its own different story within the world of Wakanda. The fact that it's Coogler's studio producing it with MCU, with Feige, and their goal is to kind of like Coogler, how he came up through the system. They want to bring in younger Black filmmakers and give them an opportunity to direct an episode of this show. Again, I think it's a great concept for a show, and I think they're using it for a great cause. Because again, and I've said this 1,000 times over, as a white guy, I lack no representation in any area of Hollywood. So anything that we can do to give more people an opportunity to do it, they should. Because especially like I found over the last few years, I remember like it was the 2018 Oscars when Green Book won. Like, and I thought Green Book was a fine movie in and of itself, but it was after the Oscars I ended up seeing a few more of the movies that came out that year. Like I finally saw If Beale Street Could Talk. I saw The Hate U Give, which wasn't even nominated. I saw Black Klansman. Even Black Panther to an extent, if you want to talk about what's one more. Sorry to Bother You. The point I'm making is that Green Book win sat much worse with me after the fact, because I saw how many films weren't given a shot by the Academy that told a similar story that's basically focusing on progression of, Black people in society, but were told in much more creative ways by storytellers who actually face that oppression, and not where the white guy was the lead of the film.
Yeah, and directed by a white guy. And I think the thing is as well, it's like,
yes, it is.
It's amazing that like all the movies you listed, it's awesome to have that many, Black POC movies out. Obviously, there needs to be more, but almost all those movies deal with race, right? Deals with some kind of discrimination, which kind of sucks as like a POC, as Black or brown or an Asian person. Like, even the films you get, it deals with the uglier side of life. There's no like, it's so rare that we get like a super bad but with Black people, or a super bad but it's brown Indian people. Like it doesn't really happen. Like we get films like Dope, which is awesome, but it still deals with race and Dope, right? So
yeah, wasn't I never got a chance to see it, but I know it's on my list. But Blind Spotting, wasn't that kind of where it starts out? It's more focused on that fun chemistry side of things, and then it really dives into dealing with heavier topics.
Yeah.
So
real heavy. Like he confronts. There's some issues with a police officer in the film, and there's a big confrontation at the end. It's like, But that I think that Sorry to Bother You and Black Panther, those 3 films came out same year and all took place in Oakland or had scenes in Oakland and stuff like that. So it's interesting. But
Yeah.
also, like, just jumping back to the Black Panther thing, just because Malcolm mentioned Shuri possibly taking over the role of Black Panther. For me, I'm sure one character will take the mantle of Black Panther, but for me, no one character is big enough or the actor is good enough to take over for Chadwick. That's why I feel like the 3 female leads should like all become a Black Panther, should all don a costume. There should be multiple Black Panthers. I'm sure that's not going to happen, but for me, just like to have Shuri be Black Panther, I know that's how it is in the comics, but for me, it's just like it's not. I'm not saying it's a step. It's definitely not a step down. It's just like I think Chadwick has just like his role and just like, especially, you know, having passed away, it's just, he's bigger than life, bigger than death. It's just such a huge role for a single actor or character to take. That's why I feel like there should be more. Yeah. But I'm probably wrong. It probably will be Shuri or just one character.
Yeah, and I mean, it's probably the one, like, the movie will show her, it will probably show her getting to that level of ness. I think it's not going to be one of those ones like, boom, she's Black Panther. Yeah. She's going to start up. She's going to show her build up to that.
Which I think, to an extent, I don't know if they'll do multiple Black Panthers, even if only because if there's like a cheap story workaround, they make such a big thing in the first film about only one person can have the heart-shaped herb. No, fuck that. But I do think the idea that Coogler has of making the second film much more of an ensemble rather than having one person have to step into that role immediately, whether it is an eventual recasting or, like you said, like a Shuri or someone stepping up into the mantle directly, I do think that's what they did. I believe at one point Coogler did make a comment about the script where he said, like, obviously some stuff had to change, but there were scenes where it's like informational scenes about the plot verbatim where lines that would have gone to T'Challa were just evenly split around other characters who were in the scene. There was never anyone in his mind, at least for the bulk of the film, we'll probably see where it's like, that person gets T'Challa's lines. It's like, no, everyone should get a little bit here and there because they all have their part to play in this film, which I think is the correct approach to it, because it's like you said, he made such an impact on so many people, whether it was, like you said, for representation purposes or whether you're somebody who just really, really enjoyed the film, because there were a lot of people who did too. He made such an impact on people that's a hard thing to go like, hey, you who's never led a franchise, best of luck to you, step up and take it. And I'd say that for any of the 3, like, maybe Lupita Nyong'o, in terms of her acting credibility, has the best shot, but that'd be hard for anyone to try and do, especially because Letitia Wright is, I mean, her only big role to date was Black Panther, because she was essentially a cameo level role in both Infinity War and Endgame, so that's hard to try and do.
Like, if I had to pick just one, it'd be Danai Gurira is just such a badass in that role. I think she'd be the best Black Panther out of everyone there. Just a total badass and scary lady.
Yeah, I mean, I think she was probably more of a cameo in an Endgame than I think she was a little bit of a major part of Infinity War.
True, but in a movie where Captain America gets 6 minutes, everything's relative, right? Which, can I say, that's the best used 6 minutes ever. When I saw that timetable where somebody like lined up, I'm like, she's on screen for 6 minutes? No shit. Okay. If everything's just 30-second increments, it really starts to stretch. All right, so let's do this as we move into kind of the final 10 minutes of our show. Did you guys get to see most of the trailer, if not most of the trailers, if not all of them?
There was only one, wasn't there, or did I miss something?
There's only 4.
Name them and I'll let you know.
Don't Breathe 2.
Nope.
Beckett.
Yep.
Nope.
Clifford the Big Red Dog.
Nope.
Yes.
The Many Saints of Newark.
No.
Yes.
Okay. So you know what? I'll save the stories for next time because we do have some stories left, but we spent more time on Loki than intended. I'll save those for next time because I think that was a really good discussion that we had there, and I don't need to follow that up with Mads Mikkelsen and Johnny Depp. So let's go ahead and talk about the trailers. We'll talk about the trailers to close out the show. So I think I'm the only one who's seen the Don't Breathe 2 trailer, so I'll start with that one. This is a movie that when I heard it was getting a sequel, my initial reaction was, what the fuck? How do you, like, and especially because it was announced so blasé, like literally it was Fede Alvarez was asked about an Evil Dead 2 sequel because that would make more sense, and he was like, yeah, him and his writing partner, I believe it's Rodo Seguez, I don't know how you say his name completely, but he was like, yeah, I mean, we'd like thought about some ideas, but like there's no Evil Dead 2 script. There is a Don't Breathe 2 that we've worked on, and we really like that script, but there's no, and it was like, what? Okay. So this is the film, and I'll actually, let me look it up so I get the gentleman's name correct. I don't want to butcher it wrong.
And what year did Don't Breathe come out in?
2016.
2016.
Yeah, so it's been a few years. So yeah, so it is Rodo Sayaguez, I hope I said that right, is the director of the film. So he has been Fede Alvarez's writing partner thus far through pretty much all of his films. He makes his directorial debut with this movie. And I actually really like the trailer. So I'll get into it as much as I can. It doesn't spoil very much because the premise of the film is kind of a huge spoiler idea, like for where if you've only seen the first one. So basically I think it's something like 10 years later, and the blind man, Norman Nordstrom, has moved out of the house he lived in the first one, and he's moved himself to like this reclusive house in the woods, where they show in the trailer that at some point in that time he adopted or took in a little girl. He's happy, he's satisfied with life, and he's kind of, that family that he missed out on, that he so brutally attempted to get back with a turkey baster, he now has found. He has it back. And basically, the plot of the trailer shows revolves around these guys who know who he is and know of his history, breaking into his house and kidnapping this girl. And he decides to go after her, and he kind of reverts back to using those old tricks in his old self,
the turkey baster,
in order to rescue this. Yes, he sends it. He sticks a turkey baster up their dick. That's in the trailer. And so basically, the twist is that he's using all the dirty tactics he used from the first film to kind of put them to his blindness, but it's as the hero. And it seems like what they're playing with is he doesn't want this girl to see who he truly is, and so it's attempting to rescue her in the way he knows how, while also trying not to make this little girl who he's formed this connection with and sees as a daughter, think he's a monster. I think it's so fucking unique, and I think the trailer is really well done, because that was one of the things I took away from the first film, is despite the fact that he is, on the surface, an awful, awful human being, he really does have a tragic backstory in that his wife and his child was taken away from him with no warning through no fault of his own. I believe, if I remember correctly, he was the one who was hit in that accident. So it's not his fault that he lost his life. He's just a man who didn't know how to go about getting it back. And he did some awful things, because sometimes when you're a human and you're broken, you do awful things. I've also been broken before. I've never tried to shove a turkey baster up a woman, but we've all done things we regret, I'm sure. And, sorry, that scene is just what you remember from that movie. It's so horrifying. But it's so I like the idea of both with this little girl and with the audience playing with the humanity side of it, which is this guy does have a compelling backstory in which you could see how he could take it to extremes. But in the first film, because we were coming from the point of view of Jane Levy and Dylan O'Brien's characters, who are trying to do something good, if not morally gray, for her and her sister, they're the protagonist and he's the antagonist. But if we flip it, and now it's the people breaking into his house are there to hurt him, and he is the protagonist, but now he has to use those same dirty, murderous instincts to get this girl back. How does that play out? It really is an interesting setup, and I hope it's a good film. I really do, because I think it's a really unique way to take this story. It only comes out in a few weeks. It releases on August 13th, so it's less than a month away. or a little over a month away, excuse me. But yeah, I think it could be really good. So I believe it was Sean who said he had seen the Beckett trailer.
Just before we go to Beckett, I just want to say I didn't see the trailer for Don't Breathe 2, but I did hear like some online chatter that people were kind of pissed off. He's kind of being turned into like an action hero, even though he did like horrible shit in the first film.
Yeah, I can see it, but I think, to me at least, it stood out as more because they make an effort to show, and there's even a shot in the trailer where they don't show it, but you see him like the prime shot in the trailer, which I hate that trailers do this now, but it's the shot they use where they cut it out and put it at the start of the trailer and then go, "Don't Breathe 2 official trailer." But it's him lying on water, and as they're stepping towards him, tiptoeing, their foot hits the water and the vibrations reverb over, and he knows where they are, and he instantly get up and in cold blood shoots a couple of people, and it's just in the off they show the silhouette of the girl standing there. And I think that's exactly the point of it. Is it's not that they're turning him into an action hero. I think it's going to focus more on the emotionality of it, in that this is a man who's got everything he wants and has to become everything he seemingly hated in order to get it back. But by being that vicious, will you destroy the human connections you formed? Like, what does that do to you? Because we saw in the first one, it makes you resort to a turkey baster filled with sperm. So, like, what does it do to you this time around when you already have that thing you so badly wanted? Like, what's the length you'll go to get it back? So I think it'll be a little deeper than just action hero, but I do see how people could get that from it if you're not like, because I loved the first film and I thought it was a lot deeper than people gave it credit for at times. So I am kind of seeing that a little bit in this. But yeah, if you want to go ahead, I'll let you go with Beckett first because I've just talked a lot. What were your thoughts on that trailer?
Yeah, so I watched the trailer for Beckett today. I couldn't just watching John David Washington. Just every time he was on screen, every time he spoke, it really just made me think of Tenet. I don't know why. I don't know why. It was a good trailer, but I just feel like the reason for why whatever this mysterious group is chasing after him, I feel like it's not going to live up to the rest of it. Like, I just feel like it's going to be some just like stupid reason why they're after him and why everyone's after him and whatnot. So it looks good. I'm not super excited about it, and I just feel like it's not gonna live up. The questions it has posed, it's not gonna live up. The answers aren't gonna live up to it. So,
yeah. So I have here the information on the film. It is produced by Call Me by Your Name director Luca Guadagnino and directed by his protege. Ferdinando Cito Filomarino. It stars John David Washington as the titular Beckett, a man who survives a devastating car crash that kills his girlfriend while vacationing in Greece. When Beckett begins to believe the accident may not have been an accident, he finds himself caught in a web of lies and mistrust and is the subject of a manhunt while being caught in the middle of public political unrest that may be related. The film co-stars Boyd Holbrook, Vicky Krieps, and Alicia Vikander, and will release to Netflix on August 13th.
And then also, when I was watching this trailer, I kept thinking, I've seen this before. There's been a lot of other movies like this. Guy on the run doesn't know why people are chasing him and stuff like that. So I also feel like it's kind of treading on territory that's already been covered. Because the trailer seems similar to a lot of other things. As
someone who was watching the middle bit of Bourne Ultimatum earlier, the Bourne films, like a bulk of the Bourne films is kind of that well, who the fuck am I and why do these people want me so badly? It's just take the who am I part out of it. Yeah, I mean the trailer looks fun. It looks beautiful. It really does look beautiful. Greece isn't a location we see often, so I like that I believe it was shot in Greece as well. So, it's a nice location. Yeah, it's one of those films where maybe it's like the Netflix effect, but I almost feel like that's on Netflix, so it can't be that good, can it? Which Netflix has made some great films, but it's almost like you're either an Oscar winner or you're fine.
Yeah.
Or you're bad, or you're just fucking bad. But yeah, you are right, though, especially because they were framing a lot of this like it was an action film and not like a thriller. It does kind of feel like a Tenet a little bit because Tenet's also a film where either he's after someone or someone's after him always. So it's a lot of movement in that same type of action feel. Yeah, I thought the trailer was fine. Like, outside of the synopsis, I don't have much more to add. I think it was fine. I do agree with your thing. I think it definitely could have a twist that disappoints or feels generic. Also, I don't know what it is, but I feel like, and again, maybe it's just society bleeding through, but I feel like the whole political unrest thing is something that we've seen in so many films where it's like something's happening and also there's political unrest in the background that's related. And it's like, okay, cool. When has a politician not pissed somebody off in the history of ever? Like, why is this something that needs to keep happening?
And also when I think he jumped off a cliff or something and like landed through a tree or whatnot.
Yeah.
I think he was handcuffed, and that just really reminded me of The Fugitive.
When he,
like, there were so many
goes
things.
off the building.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So let's move on to the big one here. This is the one we were all looking forward to. And Malcolm, with a mustache appropriate for a kid's film, I will let you go first. Talk to me about Clifford the Big Red Dog.
I mean, when they revealed the look of the dog, last year or something, I was like, that. I don't know what to think. But this trailer came out, and it actually surprised me. It actually looks pretty good. I mean, the fact that they're still going for Puppy as a giant dog still weirds me out a little bit. But I mean, it's one of those ones. If they want to go for a lifelike kids, if they want to go for a lifelike kids movie, as opposed to just doing a CGI version of the dog from the cartoons or books, then I think that's the best way to go about doing it. And I mean, and the CGI in the actual trailer, it actually doesn't look as bad as what I thought it was going to be. It looks really seamless. It looks exactly what you expect a giant dog to look like in real life.
Yeah, like, honestly, I thought it looked about as good as it was ever going to look. Like, I don't know. Oh, here it is. All right. So this is, I was finding it. So we technically, so this was back before we had Matt making logos for us for every episode. I can't get it any bigger, but you can see there one of the old After Dark episodes. I realized that here, actually, let me zoom in. There we go. So I realized that the way the YouTube algorithm works is if you don't actually put a picture over the video, it pulls it from either from essentially the last 10 or so minutes of the stream. It just pulls a random image and sticks it up there. So for the last 10 minutes or so, I just had images of Clifford alternating, hoping it would pull it, and it worked. So Clifford is an image for one of our old videos. And that was 7 months ago, Malcolm. So that was at the start of the year. So Clifford is forever a part of our YouTube channel. Yeah, I thought the trailer was fine, honestly. Like, I get people's concerns, and I'm pretty sure the guy who directed the fucking road chip. So, like, for all I know, it's going to be awful. But honestly, it looked fine. As a comedian, I like Jack Whitehall. I don't know what accent he was doing. He sounded so off in this trailer trying to do an American accent. It's not like bland like Benedict Cumberbatch. It's like just weird. Because like Benedict Cumberbatch, someone else noticed when Benedict Cumberbatch does an American accent, he loses all emotion in his voice. Like he has to try to bring emotion back into his voice. It's not that. It's just weird. But yeah, like it's an interesting modernization of Clifford. What would Clifford be in the modern world? Well, a little girl who's getting bullied goes to the magic puppy shop and picks up a magic puppy that she cries on, and it grows to become a giant. This is actually the plot of the film, by the way, Sean. She gets a magic red puppy from a clearly magical animal seller played by John Cleese, and she cries tears on the puppy, wishing he would be big, and those tears are magic tears that cause the puppy to grow exponentially overnight. But he's still big enough, if I can find the picture, to fit in their apartment and walk out its front door. Here it is. This is the image. I'll have it up on the screen in a sec.
I was looking at the director's filmography. He's got some kind of obsession with animals because this is his entire filmography.
Like
He
it
is
fits, and assuming that's not like their apartment isn't just that building. Like if it's in New York, you have to assume that's like a bunked apartment where there's like multiple levels and different rooms in it. Like that's not just them. I don't know, man, but I love it. I love every second of it. What
I
other
just wanna
animal shit has he
say-
done?
As a diehard Clifford fan, I'm absolutely outraged that they're deviating from the source material. One, by placing it in New York, and two, by adding magic to it. Like, what is that? This is absurd. A magical dog.
Go ahead.
but
Doc.
yeah,
What else?
but yeah, the other movies that Walt Becker has directed, he did Buying the Cow. That was his first one. Van Wilder, Wild Hogs, Old Dogs, Alvin and the Chipmunks, The Road Trip, and now Clifford the Big Red Dog.
Which Van
Hold on.
Wilder did he do?
The first
The
one.
first one?
Yeah.
How did the guy who did Van Wilder end up making The Road Trip? What is your career And like knowing the films he made, most of them aren't very good, but like how does your career traject that way? Hey, you're going to be the guy who makes Ryan Reynolds a star, to hey, you're going to make the fourth Chipmunk movie. Yeah, the one where we care so little the Chipettes aren't going to show up because they're on American Idol, which was
I
already
believe
outdated
there was
by
a
the time
dog.
they made it.
There was a dog in Van Wilder, right? That they used to fill like cream puffs with or something.
That sounds sexual as shit. Why is there
There
a
was
dog
something
in
very wrong done to a dog in Van Wilder. You guys need to watch the film to find out.
Oh, I've never seen it.
Will
I've
we see
always-
that scene in Clifford, the big red dog? I don't know. It's a big dog.
I don't know. Jack Whitehall's comedy is just dirty enough. If there's just a shot of him shoving Twinkies up Clifford's asshole, like that would make the movie. Oh my god. There you go. Let's see what Chris says. I just hated this trailer after Tom and Jerry. I'm sick and tired of seeing Hollywood taking stuff I grew up on and taking a crap all over it. I don't know, man. I didn't hate Tom and Jerry in that way. Like, sure, Tim Story can't direct a film worth of crap outside of it, but like, that's not fair. I don't hate all of his films. Barbershop's good. I don't think Ride Along's terrible, but like, the human stuff in that film is terrible. Like, Michael Pena looks like he's on a fucking Ambien half the time. Chloe Grace Moretz is on a Xanax half the time. Rob Delaney's the only poor person trying, and Colin Jost is looking at that script wishing he could rewrite it himself. And but the Tom and Jerry stuff was actually good. I actually thought he got that part right.
I do feel Chris's pain though. Someone did mention earlier the title for the new Transformers film. And as a person who grew up on Beast Wars, or Beast Machines, whatever it was called, where you're living, they're totally gonna fuck this up in the next movie. They're gonna get.
You think?
They're gonna get the Maximals and Predacons so horribly wrong. They announced the lineup for the Maximals. They don't even have the lineup that was in the show. They're gonna fuck it up. Going to fuck it up for sure.
Yeah, I mean,
I only trust it because I like the director. That's the only reason I trust it. Which it's a gentleman who did Creed 2. I can't remember his name offhand.
Yeah, I mean, just to bounce off, like Chris's comments, like I haven't seen Tom and Jerry, so I don't have any opinion on that at the moment.
He has no dog in this fight.
But
I'll see myself.
But I mean, as someone who also sort of grew up with Clifford and that, I think this trailer, it looks like it's still keeping the spirit. Well, yes, they're adding in magic, but I think it's more to give a kind of origin story to Clifford, just to sort of show how he got that big. I don't know.
Does the show, as the mythology expert, Sean, does the show ever establish how Clifford came to be that big? Was that just puberty as a bitch? Or?
I think it was a book series first. I think that's what started it off.
Oh, okay.
And I think Clifford was always just big in the books. Like, this would be like adding magic to Garfield, the Garfield movie. Like, we don't need to know why Garfield talks, why he thinks like a human, eats lasagna. We don't even know that. Like, so why are you adding magic to Clifford, my favorite dog in media? I'm just so outraged. I'm so angry. I can't even talk about this anymore.
Can I just say, Garfield did have magic. Somehow Bill Murray thought a Coen brother wrote that film and signed on. That's the magic of that film.
Also, Chris, Van Wilder and Wild Hogs are good movies. I mean,
I don't think Old Dogs is all that bad. I mean, John Travolta can't act, but Robin Williams is funny.
I haven't seen Old Dog. Like, the only ones I've seen
Not worth recommending.
which is Van and Wild Hogs. They're the only ones I've seen and
Oh yeah, Clifford does eat a dog in the trailer. There is cannibalism at one point.
I mean,
I think he's out, but like,
well, I mean, it's one of those ones. I think. I mean, I think they put that one in the comedy, whether or not it makes it into the final film. As things when it comes to trailers, not everything in the trailer is going to end up in the final product, as always. And I mean, it's probably one of those ones, just like showing Clifford sort of learning to play with dogs without eating. I don't know. But
it's accidentally killing dogs by stepping on them.
I mean, we'll find out in a couple of months when the movie officially gets released.
Oh,
This
is where I wish more people I knew who would see this shit lived near me, because this is absolutely the movie where I'm like, hey guys, let's go watch that, because this is the movie you get a group of drunk friends to go see. This is what you go and this isn't a joke. And if either of you guys have seen this movie, you know how bad this is. I had a friend, this was before the pandemic. I had a friend text me, and this was when Bad Boys was out and all like movies like that, The Gentleman was out. My friend texted me and he goes, hey, a bunch of us are drinking. We're going to go see a film. You want to come? And as the only one in the group who really knows films, I was like, sure. Like, do you need me to like pick out a film, or do you already have one? And they're like, nah, we have one that we think could be good, so we're gonna go see that. And I was like, cool. I show up, I meet with them in the parking lot, and I go, so what's the movie? And they go, we're seeing that new Michael B. Jordan film, Just Mercy. And what? That's what we're seeing? I love the film, but I was sober. I don't know how they fell asleep. So. And listen, Tony Hale is getting honestly what he deserves at this point. he nothing against him, but like, come on. All right, so Clifford the Big Red Dog is fucking magical. Many Saints of Newark will close the show up. I haven't seen The Sopranos. I will see this movie most likely, but I have not seen The Sopranos, so I have no frame of reference for what this is connecting to outside of knowing Anthony Soprano must be Tony Soprano, because that guy looks like James Gandolfini. And I'm assuming some of the characters also connect to the show. They have to, I assume. I thought the trailer looked cool. It looked like a fun gangster film. Funny enough, talking about political unrest, this also takes place during a real set of riots that happened. So it's, speaking of, twice in 1 week. But yeah, as somebody who knows nothing about The Sopranos, like, that's not a selling point to me. But if we're talking about like a film with a great cast, and I have the rundown here, like, I don't know the two leads. Obviously, Michael Gandolfini is James Gandolfini's son, and Alessandro Nivola, I can't think of anything I've seen him in offhand, but the supporting cast, Leslie Odom Jr., John Bernthal, Ray Liotta, Corey Stoll, Billy Magnuson, and Vera Farmiga. That's a great cast. Like, that in and of itself with an entertaining trailer is enough to make me interested. I think it was Sean said he had seen it, so what did you think of it?
Yeah, I as well have never seen The Sopranos, but this trailer, it looked really good. Just the stellar cast, just everything I saw. It looks like a cool gangster, crime film. I love the theme song coming in at the end of the trailer. I'm always interested when like sons portray their father's characters or themselves in films, just like Ice Cube's son did in Straight Outta Compton. So it'll be interesting to see what he does. And Corey Stoll, Corey Stoll is an amazing actor. He's phenomenal. So yeah, just the cast alone and just looking at the trailer, like, yeah, I'm very interested in this film.
Now, I will say I am glad the trailer is good, because for the longest time I was legitimately worried about this film. The director of it is a guy named Alan Taylor, who worked with HBO for a number of years. He directed for, I have the list in front of me, he directed for Oz, Sex and the City, the original Sopranos, The West Wing, 6 Feet Under. He directed for Lost, Rome, Mad Men, Game of Thrones. He's done work for a bunch of great TV shows. His film contributions are Thor: The Dark World and Terminator Genesis. And that's a scary filmography, because one is the worst of a great group of films, and Terminator Genesis is the worst of a franchise that overall is really not that good. So that is scary to me. But maybe because, and I believe I'll pull up the number here. He directed 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 episodes of The Sopranos over 6 or 7 seasons. 6 seasons. So hopefully, maybe because it's back in a world he's used to, it's a smaller film. Both of those were big budgets. Maybe he has a handle on it. But yeah, that's the only thing that worries me about this film. Everything else is out the park, and I thought the trailer was really good. Malcolm, have you at least seen The Sopranos? Malcolm frozen? Nope, there he is. He's muted. That's what it is. I got you. I can't unmute you.
What was that?
Have you seen The Sopranos? Have you at least seen the thing we haven't?
I've not seen The Sopranos.
Okay.
I just know their theme songs "Don't Stop Believing," so that's all I know about it.
I have seen that scene. It had a great ending. So with that said, if you watched the show for 2 hours and 15 minutes to get our insight on the spinoff to The Sopranos, I'm sorry we did not bring very much. If you were here for the Loki discussion, I hope the screaming at the end wasn't too much for you. And if you were here for all the stuff in the middle, then I hope you enjoyed the commentary. This has been a great show. Malcolm, Sean, if you guys want to plug anything you might be involved with, especially you, Malcolm, go ahead.
You can find me on Tape 3 Productions. I host Rankin every Saturday night, usually just before this. Sometimes we go and finishing halfway through. But next week is going to be a Marvel-related topic because of Black Widow.
Yeah.
But whatever topic will be whatever wins the poll. Tomorrow I'm doing Late Night Take 3. We're talking about crossovers. And that you can find me over on Full Metal. I host Full Metal Classic on Sundays and Full Metal Random on Tuesday.
Yeah, absolutely. And Sean, is there anything you want to plug? Social media, letterbox, some people like to, whatever.
I think the only thing I have to plug are the things I've done on here this week. I've been on a lot. I did a trivia match this past Monday. I don't know if that's out yet or not.
It should be.
Pardon?
No. Wait, did we film that?
I don't want to. I did that on Monday. So check that out.
Those are pre-recorded anyways. That comes out tomorrow.
Ooh, so check that out.
There it is.
That was a super fun match. And then I was also on Wednesday for, was it Battleground?
Yeah, so fuck it. We winked around the camera enough earlier. I haven't publicly announced any matches yet, but as they both jokingly referred to, one of the matches that is set up and has already recorded is the great Sean Hunter, who is on this side of me, versus Grant Gregory, which, without spoiling it, was a hell of a match. Both competitors brought it as much as I think you could humanly break it. I did offer to pay for hospital bills if you needed it. That's where we got that, and that's recorded. So that's where we got. Yeah, so that's just one of the many fun, great matches. Like I said, most of the stuff for Battleground hasn't been announced publicly yet. Full matches and release dates, all that's coming soon publicly, as we are already recording matches and we are preparing to set an upload schedule. More on that will be released later. But with that said, guys, thank you so much for checking out the show. Please be sure to rate the show, comment, subscribe. We've had a number of you guys in the chat tonight who are more of you guys in the chat tonight than the last few weeks, and a couple of channels who unfortunately I don't recognize offhand. Maybe you guys have some connections to other people, which is great. So if you're not subscribed, please be sure to subscribe, rate, come back for it. I promise every week isn't me and Nikki screaming at each other over the multiverse and producer talent. Nikki knows it's all love. I've known him for so long at this point. It's all love. But we have great discussions every week about all the latest in the world of movies. So tune in for it. Be sure to check out everything else on the channel. Tomorrow at noon EST, we have the Supernova Show going up. Colton Roberts and his crew there talk about all the latest in nerdy pleasures, including every single week on time. They are doing discussions on both The Bad Batch and Loki. So if you're interested in hearing more current discussions about projects like that, they are discussing them there, especially the Marvel stuff, since now it's announced that most of that will air on that Wednesday date versus that Friday date. It gives them more time to watch and prepare for the show every Sunday. So that goes up at noon. Monday at 7 p.m. EST, we have Schmo Talks going up. This week is a return to our panel-style show, talking about the beginning of season 6 of the Schmodown, so be sure to check that out. On Tuesday afternoons, we have Cancel This Show, the fellow Dr. Spaceman and our recurring man who runs the channel, Matt Beer. God forbid if politics is your thing, they talk about that on the show, so check it out. And of course, we have Movie Battleground coming to you very, very soon. With that said, my name is Aaron Knoll. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you guys next time on After Dark. That's it.